welcome back to day 2 of the full stack PVR 2.2 application. So in this video we'll be constructing a backend that is using Sanity CMS and then integrating it inside of our front-end app. Okay, we'll be initializing a new Sanity project and then defining all of our schemas that will be required, and we'll also be implementing the payment processing part as well. So if you find this interesting, please smash the like button and also subscribe for more such content, and let's get started. So the first step is to initialize a Sanity project. Okay, so let's go do that. So firstly we need to install Sanity CLI. Okay, so you can pretty much copy this piece of code inside my terminal and you can install Sanity CLI. Okay, I'm gonna skip this part because I've already installed this inside of my system. Okay, so if you just check out sanity.io in Chrome, that is this one. I have logged in with my Google account and these are some of my projects. Okay, so similarly we're going to create our project and then start initializing our build, right? So to do that I'm going to say sanity init and then press on enter. So it's going to ask this question. I'm going to press on Y and then enter. So these are some of my existing projects as you have seen. Okay, I'm going to select on this one, that is create new project, and then enter. So it's going to ask us the project name, so I'm going to say, let's say PVR movies, something like this, and then enter. Okay, so use the default dataset configuration. I'm going to press on Y and then enter. So it's going to create the dataset for us, and it's going to ask us that if this is the required project output path. Okay, I'm going to press on enter. I want it to be default itself. So here it's going to ask us to choose the project template. I'm going to choose the third one, that is block schema, and then enter. So do you want to use TypeScript? We're not using that, so N, no, enter. So now it's gonna pretty much create a folder for us over here inside this directory, right? So package manager is gonna be yarn and then enter. Yeah, so now it's gonna pretty much initialize the folder that is with this name PVR movies inside of our root directory over here. Okay, so let's wait for that to happen. It's gonna take a couple of minutes, I guess. Okay guys, so our project has been initialized inside our directory. So if you check out over here, you can see the PVR movies, right? That's the same name we have given. So if you check out over here, we have different things, that is node modules, schemas, static, sanity.cli.json, yarn file, and then the config.js. So we are only interested currently in the schemas. Okay, so we have something called as author.js, block content, category, post, and then index.js file. Okay, so these are the default schemas that have already been created by Sanity when we initialized our project. Okay, so pretty much if you check out the author, you have the name, title, and the type of it, that is the document, and pretty much some other fields as well. So similarly for block content and category and index.js file and post.js. Okay, so the main thing that happens is inside of our index.js where we import all of our schemas, and then we're gonna pretty much export it so it gets defined inside of our Sanity backend, right? Okay, so now let's look out at the backend structure of our project. Okay, so to do that I'm gonna say sanity start. Okay, so before doing that we need to do one thing. We need to go into the PVR movies folder and then do over that. So I'm gonna say cd PVR movies. So to do anything related to the backend, that is by using Sanity, we need to go into this particular folder and then do it over that. So I'm going to say cd PVR movies. So we are currently inside our this PVR movies folder. So I'm going to say sanity start. Okay, so this is going to run. Okay, start development server instead. Yes, I'm going to press on enter. So there you go. So I'm going to pretty much open this link, and this is pretty much our structure of the backend. Okay, as you can see, we have pretty much three schemas, that is the post schema, the author schema, as well as the category schema. Okay, so and according to our project, whatever we require, that is the movies, theaters, the show times, we're going to design this right now. Okay, so let's look into that part. Firstly, let's go into the schemas folder and start designing our schemas. Okay, So let's first understand how exactly our schema should look like, okay? So to understand that, firstly, let's look into the demo of the application once. So firstly, I've selected the Bangalore location, as you can see over here, and pretty much I'm going to select the film, that is, let's say this one, and I'm going to select the first mall, that is Elements Mall, and the first show time, that is 9 a.m. And I'm going to book the first 2 seats of row A, okay? And I'm going to press on the pay button. So as you can see, these 2 seats have been booked, okay? So, and of course the state is not persistent. That is, if I go back to the previous screen and come back to this screen, you might see these 2 seats as unbooked, okay? So now currently what has happened is I've selected the Bangalore location and selected the first film, and for the first mall, that is Elements Mall, and the show time is 9 a.m. we have booked these 2 seats. Okay, so now let's say I want to book these 2 seats for the show time, that is 10:30 a.m. right? So what is going to happen is we have already booked this, right? So even if you select the 10:30 a.m. show time, it is going to show it as booked, correct? So currently it is showing as unbooked because state is not persistent. So let's imagine that state is persistent. You will be seeing that these 2 seats are already booked, correct? But that should not happen, right? We should have a whole new theater for a whole new show time. That is, for 9 a.m. we should have a different theater, for 10:30 a.m. we should have a different theater, and similarly for all show times we should have a different theater for that particular mall, correct? So that's the way we should work. I mean, we should implement that. So we'll be modifying our schema in such a way that all of these implementations work correctly, correct? So let's implement our schemas first, as I told. So over here I'm going to pretty much delete all of these, that is author.js, and then blog content.js, category.js, as well as post.js. Okay, so as you can see, we have an error because inside our index.js file we are pretty much importing all of these which are not there. Okay, so firstly let's initialize our first schema, that is our movie schema. So I'm going to say movie.js. Okay, so let's come over here to the first screen. So as you can see, the movie is going to have pretty much the image, the name, and the language. Okay, if you want you can even add the overview, that is the description, if you want. So pretty much I'm gonna say import or define type from Sanity. Okay, now you're gonna define how exactly our movie schema is gonna look like. So I'm gonna say export default define type. Okay, so over here firstly let's access the name. So the name is gonna be movie. The title is gonna be, so title pretty much is gonna start with a capital letter, so I'm gonna say movie. Okay, and the next thing is we're gonna have the fields for it. Okay, so I'm gonna say fields. Okay, so fields is gonna be an array, so I'm gonna say over here name. So pretty much name I'm gonna give it as title. So this is gonna be a type of string. I'm gonna say string, and we also have to write the type of this, that is type of movie. So it's gonna be a type of document. So I'm gonna say document like this. So after the title we have the next thing coming, that is the poster path. So I'm gonna say title, I mean the name. So this is gonna be the poster path. Okay, this also is gonna be a type of string. Okay, so after that we have is the overview. If you want you can skip this off because we are not actually using this inside of our app anywhere. So I'm gonna say overview, that is the description. This also is gonna be a type of string. Okay, so I'm gonna say type of string, and after that we have is the original language. So I'm gonna say name, it's gonna be original language like this, and this too is gonna be a type of string. Okay, I think that's it. These are the four fields required for our movie schema, that is the title, the poster path, the overview, as well as the original language. Okay, so these are the fields that are required for our movie schema, correct? So let's pretty much save the file. Okay, let's open up our file tree, schemas, and then new file. I'm gonna create a new schema, that is the location.js. These are for all of our places, right? So if you check out our places over here, we pretty much have two things, that is the place name and the image, correct? So let's define that Okay, so pretty much import define type. Okay, so I'm gonna say export default define type. So firstly I'm gonna say title, it's gonna be location, the name is gonna be location in small letters, and the type is gonna be of document, like this. And pretty much the next thing is the fields in this particular document, it's gonna be an array. So the first field we have is, I'm gonna say title, it's gonna be city, the name is gonna be city, and this should be in capital letters, that is title C capital, the name is gonna be city. And the next thing is, it's gonna be type of string. Similarly, the next thing we have is the title, it's gonna be image, and the name is gonna be image, and the type is gonna be string. That's it. Okay, so that was it about the location part, that is the location schema. We have only two things, that is the city name as well as our image. As you can see, we have the city name and the image, that's it. So pretty much save the file. So the next thing we'll be looking into is pretty much our show times. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new file inside our schemas folder. So I'm gonna say showtimes.js and import the first line, that is define type. Okay, so let's start defining our show times, correct? So I'm gonna say export default define type. So the name is gonna be show times, and the type is gonna be of a document. Okay, so the fields is gonna be an array. So we're gonna write the first field. So the show times, in the sense we're gonna have, of course, the timings. So I'm gonna say name is gonna be time, and the type is gonna be of string. So the next thing we're gonna provide after the timing is gonna be title, it's gonna be movie, and then name is gonna be movie in small letters, and then type. So this is gonna have a reference, correct? So I'm gonna say reference to which reference? It's gonna have a reference to the type of movie. Okay, so the way we write that is type is gonna be movie. So we have already defined the movie type over here, that is movie.js. So any particular show time that we define is gonna have a reference to this particular movie, correct? So that reason we have written that. So the next thing we have is the title. This is gonna be a theater, and the name is gonna be theater in small letters, and this also is gonna have a reference. So I'm gonna say a reference and to type of theater. So currently we have not defined the theater type, we're gonna define it in just a bit, so let's wait for that. So after the theater, we're gonna write the final one, that is gonna be the row. So we're gonna say title as row, the name is gonna be row in small letters, and we're gonna have a type. So this is gonna be a array, correct? So it's gonna say, I'm gonna say array, and it's gonna be of type row. So we have to define two more things, that is row and theater, correct? So let's save the file, and I'm gonna create a new file that is known as theater.js. Okay, so I'm gonna say theater.js, save the file, and I'm gonna pretty much copy the first piece of code. Okay, so let's start defining our schema. So I'm gonna say export default define type. Okay, so the first thing is it's gonna have a name, that is the theater name. So I'm gonna say, okay, before that we're gonna say name, it's gonna be theater, the title is gonna be theater, and it's gonna be a type of document like this, and we're going to write our fields. So of course it's going to have the name field, correct? That is the name of the mall. So I'm going to say name. It's going to be name itself. The title is going to be name, and we have the type. It's going to be of type string, correct? So after that we have is a reference, correct? Because we need to identify that this theater belongs to which particular location, correct? So for that reason I'm providing a reference over here. So I'm going to say title is going to be location, and the name is going to be location like this, and we have the type. It's going to be reference. Okay, so to which type is going to be a reference, correct? So it's going to be a reference to type location. Location is already been defined over here inside our location.js file, so not to worry. Okay, so that's it for the theater.js file. So save the file. So the next thing and the final one is the row schema. So I'm going to say row.js. Okay, I'm pretty much going to paste the code for that. Okay, so pretty much I've defined it the same way, that is by importing the defined type. Okay, so it's going to have a name of row, the title of row, and the type is going to be of an object. Okay, and pretty much over here the fields. So firstly we have the name as row. This is the row, that is A B C D, and after that we have the seats. So seats is going to be a type of an array, and of the name is going to be seat, the type is going to be an object, the fields over here is the number, and we have the name, that is booking status. It's going to be a false or true depending upon the string that we have provided over here. Okay, and we're going to provide an options, that is layout is going to be table. So you can feel free to copy this schema out, okay, from the first. Okay, so that's it. So pretty much save the file. So now we are going to import all of our schemas inside of our index.js file. Okay, so I'm going to say firstly import, we have the movie from movie, import location from location, and then import show times from show times, and then import after show times we have is let's say theater from theater, and then import row from row. I think we have 5. Let's check that out. 1 2 3 4 5. We have 5. We can pretty much remove all of these. Okay, so over here in export const schema types equals to, we're going to provide all of our schemas that we have created, that is movie, location, show times, theater, as well as our row. So now if I save the file, of course everything should work correctly, hopefully. Let's give it a try. So there you go, everything is looking fine. So if you check out our schema now, so this is our schema, correct? So we have the movie type. As you can see, if you go over here, you can pretty much create your own movie, that is title, poster path, overview, and then original language. Okay, and for the location you have similarly 2 things, that is the city and the image. For show times we have the timings, and we have the movie reference, right? So we can pretty much select the movie for that particular show time if we want to display it in our app, and we can select for that particular theater, and we have a whole new theater for that particular show time, as I told, right? So we can pretty much add the item, and you can select the row as well as the seats, right? And similarly we have the theater schema. So if you check out over here, so there you go, we have the name of the theater and we have the location as a reference for that particular theater. Okay, so that's it. So the next step is we're going to add some of the data, and then we're going to pretty much get all of the data inside of a front end and look if everything is working correctly, right? So let's add some of our data inside of our backend over here. So let's start from the movie schema. So I'm going to add the details for the first movie. Okay, so of course all of the details is present inside of our code. So if you check out our home screen over here, so you can get all of the data. So I'm gonna pretty much copy the name over here, let's say this one, and I'm gonna paste over here. Okay, so the poster path is gonna be this itself. So we are not gonna change anything that we have done in the previous video. It's gonna be the same exact thing, right? So the next thing is the overview. Okay, actually this is not required. If you want to use this in any part of your application, you can pretty much use that. So overview, so original language, it's gonna be English. Okay, so after doing this, I'm gonna pretty much say publish. Okay, so this document has been published. As you can see, we have one movie inside of our movie document. So the next thing we're gonna look into is the location. Okay, add the location. So I'm gonna say Bangalore. So of course this data also is present inside of our places screen over here. So if we check out over here, so we have the city as Bangalore, and pretty much copy this piece of image. Okay, and publish this as well. Okay, so the next thing is the show times. So let's add the show time. So this is gonna be, let's say 9. Okay, and the movies to search. So since we have provided the reference in the showtime schema, so now if I press on the drop down for this, this particular movie, that is the Pop's Exorcist, is gonna contain this showtime. Okay, so let's add that movie over here as a reference. Okay, so I'm gonna say select this movie as the reference. So theater, we have not yet added it, so I'm gonna go to the theater. So pretty much add the theater. So this also is present inside of our code. So if you check out our theater screen, okay, or the movie screen over here, let's say we add the first theater, this one. Okay, so here also we need to provide a reference that is for the theaters. So I'm gonna pretty much provide Bangalore itself. So there you go, Bangalore, and then publish it. Okay, let's come back to our show times. Select the first document, and now for the theater, I'm gonna provide the theater that we just selected, that is element small. Now we're gonna provide the theater for this particular show time. Okay, so add the document. So row is gonna be A, and for row A we're gonna add the seats now. So I'm gonna say add item. So seat number is gonna be 1, booking status for all, at the initial state is gonna be false. So pretty much save or publish. So next I'm gonna say add. Okay, it's gonna be 2, I'm gonna say false. Okay, so pretty much publish it. Next is 3, I'm gonna say false, and publish it. So pretty similarly again I'm gonna do for 4. Okay, and then for 5. Then for 6. Okay, save the file and publish. Okay, so that's it about row A. Okay, so now we'll just be looking into row A for, just checking if everything is working right. After everything finishes, you can feel free to add one more row. So add item. So this is going to be row B, and again add the seats for row B. So 1, and then false. Okay, so that's it. So that's the way you need to add all of the data into your backend, right? So if you want, you can add another movie over here by just pressing on this right symbol. So another movie gets added. Okay, and pretty much in the show times, it's in the show times over here you can add pretty much another show time, and you can select the movie for that particular show time. So now we have selected the show time as 9 a.m. Okay, so over here we're gonna we have selected this film for this particular show time, and this is the mall that we have selected. And as you can see, for this mall inside the theater, we have given something called as the reference, that is Bangalore, correct? As you can see, so now we have just added one data, so I'll pretty much add all of the datas, okay, into our location, into our movies, and into our show times as well, and the theaters too. Okay, so you can pretty much add just the way I showed you. Okay, so first let me add all of the data and then come back, right? Okay guys, so I've just added some data that is required for testing purposes. Okay, so let me just show you some of the modifications that I've made. So this is the first thing, that is the movie document. So this is gonna have just one movie. Okay, I've not made any changes. It's gonna be the same set of details that I added earlier. And the next thing is location document. So over here I've added pretty much all of the locations that were there previously in our app. So all of this is already present inside our places screen. So if you can check out over here, we have the place and then image. You can pretty much get that out and pretty much fill the location document. Okay, so after that we have is the showtimes document. We have added two things, that is 12 o'clock and then 10:20. So for 12 o'clock we have the showtime as 12 o'clock. The movie I've added is this, that is a single movie which we have, and theater is this one. This is a new theater, and these are pretty much my seats. Okay, so for 10:20 this is the show time, and this is the single movie which we have, and this is the theater that I've added. Okay, and these are my seats. So that's it about show times. And the next one is for theater. So pretty much I've added one more theater, that is this one, and let's check this out. So the name of the theater and the location I've given is Bangalore. Okay, so that's it. So I think this is enough for testing purposes. Okay, we can check if everything is working right in the front end part. Okay, so now to query the information, that is whatever we want, we will be using something called as the GROQ query language. Okay, so if you pretty much press on the vision button over here on the left hand side, we will be writing our queries. Okay, and towards the right hand side we will be seeing our results. Okay, so let's write the first query, to pretty much get all of the details of each and every document. Okay, so this is like the simplest query. So I'm going to say underscore type equals to, firstly I'm going to access all of my details from my location document. Okay, that's it. So I'm going to pretty much press on fetch. Okay, so as you can see, this document has 8 items, that is 8 cities. So if you pretty much check out the first object, so it's going to have a unique underscore ID. This is generated by Sanity itself. This also, that is updated at, this is the one which we gave, that is image, city, created at underscore ref, and this is going to have a type of location. Okay, so similarly the same details for all the other cities. So we pretty much have 8 cities inside of our location document. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look into is, let's say movie. So I'm going to press on the fetch button. It's going to give us one item because we only have one movie inside of our movie document, that is this movie, right? So it's going to give underscore type of movie, poster path, all the other details which Sanity has generated, like created at underscore ID, and overview also, that is which we have given, correct? So after that, after the movie, we have, let's try and track the show times. So let's press on fetch. Yeah, so we have 3 show times present inside of our show times document, that is 10:20 and then 12 o'clock and then 9 o'clock. Okay, so for 10:20 we have the theater set up. So this is pretty much a reference that we have given, that is a theater. We also have a reference to the movie also. So as you can see, there is something called as underscore ref. So with the help of this, we'll be querying the information that we want. And apart from that, we have the row, that is seats. Okay, so pretty much this is gonna have one item, that is row. Inside row we have the row name, that's gonna be A, and inside this row we have something called as seats. So inside the seats we have 4 items, I guess 5 items. Okay, so pretty much we have the underscore key, the number, the underscore type is going to be seat, and booking status is false for all of the seats at the initial stage. So pretty much you can check that out for all of the remaining seats, correct? So the same thing we have for remaining show times, that is 12 o'clock as well as 9 o'clock, right? So the next thing we're going to look into is the theater. So I'm going to say theater and then fetch. So we pretty much have two items inside of a theater document. Okay, that is this one and this one. Okay, again we have something called as the location. We have something called as the reference to the location. Okay, so as you can see, we have the location and this is the reference that we have. Okay, so based on this reference ID, we're gonna fetch all of the theaters of a particular place that we choose initially, correct? And all of the remaining details, that is all these, are automatically generated by Sanity, right? So the next step is we're gonna pretty much get all of the films in a front end using the query that we just showed, right? And before that, we need to install something called as the Sanity client to do this. So I'm gonna say Sanity client over here. So go to the first link and pretty much copy this. We're going to install this using yarn. Okay, so over here, open up a new terminal and make sure that you are inside your this folder, that is PVR movies folder, and then install this, right? So I'm going to say cd PVR movies. Okay, we are in that correct folder. I'm going to say yarn add Sanity client. So this should be installed inside our package.json of your PVR movies and not the package.json of this entire directory, that is PVR 2.2 project, right? So make sure you implement in this way. So package.json. Okay, let's pretty much press on enter. So hopefully it should be installed over here. Let's give it some time to install. Okay, as you can see, we have it over here, correct? So now I'm gonna pretty much close this off and I'm gonna press on PVR movies and I'm gonna say new file and I'm gonna say sanity.js. Okay, so over here we are gonna copy this piece of code like this. I'm gonna paste it over here. So before that, let's import the Sanity client from this value, that is sanity slash client. Okay, we're gonna paste this off. So instead of create client, I'm gonna say Sanity client. Okay, so now we need to fill all of these values. I'm gonna remove the API version. Okay, and there is another value that we need to pass that is called as the token. Okay, so the project ID, let's go to our sanity.io, this link. Okay, so this was the project that we created, if you would remember at the start, right? So press on this. So if you pretty much go to your API, if you go to API, here we have the tokens. So before that, let's first add a project ID. So if you check out over here, we have something called as a project ID right next to the status, right? So copy that out and I'm gonna paste over here. Okay, so data set, just press on the data sets over here. So it's gonna be production. So pretty much write production over here. So I'm gonna say production. Okay, and then for token over here, come back to API as I told and press on tokens. Okay, add API token. So I'm gonna choose editor. I'm gonna press on save. Okay, it's asking a name. Let's pretty much give the project name itself and then save. So it's gonna give us a token. Copy this and then I'm gonna paste it over here, right? So save the file. Now that's it. Now with the help of this client, we're gonna pretty much fetch all of our information that we want from the backend, right? So now let's come back to our home screen. So now before fetching or before initializing our use effect, we need to make we need to install two things. Okay, that is URL search params polyfill for this to work, for the fetch request to work. So I'm gonna say URL search params polyfill, the first link. So pretty much let's install this using yarn. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this out. Okay, I'm gonna open a new terminal and make sure you install this in the original directory, that is PVR 2.2 project, and not inside this PVR movies. Okay, So I'm gonna say yarn add URL search params polyfill. So press on enter. So apart from this, we need one more dependency, that is React Native URL polyfill. So I'm gonna go over here and search for React Native URL polyfill, the first link. Okay, let's install this using yarn. So I'm gonna copy this piece of code and I'm gonna paste it over here itself. Okay. Yeah, so now let's come back to our code once. Yeah, I think both of them have been installed inside of our package JSON. Okay, yeah, React Native polyfill and this dependency too. Right, so now let's come back to our home screen. So I need to paste, a couple of codes. So I'm just gonna get that code right now. Okay, so I've just pasted the code for this one, that is the global.url equals to URL and the URL search params. Okay, so the next thing is we need to import it. Okay, so if you don't do this step, I mean, you won't be able to access all of the data in the backend. You're gonna get an error that is related to basically the URL polyfill. Okay, so I'm gonna say pretty much import URL search params polyfill like this. And the next thing is I'm gonna say import URL from React. I think let's try to auto import it if it is possible. Okay guys, so these are the two import statements that are required. Okay, so hopefully now everything should work. That is, we need to get the exact results from our backend. Okay, so firstly I'm going to initialize my use state to set the movies data, right? So I'm going to say const movies data comma set movies data equals to use state, and initially I'm going to pass in an empty array. Okay, use state is already imported. Okay, so now I'm going to initialize my use effect. So I'm going to say use effect I want this to run only one time when the home screen component loads. So I'm just passing an empty dependency array over here. Okay, so over here I'm going to initialize my function. Let's say const fetch data equals to, it's going to be an async function. Okay, here I'm going to say const result equals to await. I'm going to access my client that I just initialized from my Sanity folder. So pretty much import client from PVR movies / Sanity, right? So I'm going to say await client dot, I'm going to use the fetch method, and inside the fetch I'm pretty much going to copy the query. So over here I'm going to go back over here. Pretty much we want the movies, right? So I'm going to say movie. Okay, so copy this piece of code, and I'm going to say I'm going to make use of backticks, and I'm going to paste it over here. So this is our query that is used to fetch all of the films coming from the backend, right? After this I'm going to say set the movies data to be of the result, and I'm going to say set the sorted data, this is for the sorting functionality, to be the result too. Okay, so pretty much save the file, and let's cut this server, that's not required. Okay, and I think we have error, just a minute. Okay, so now let's pretty much call the function over here, that is fetch data, and save the file. Okay, we have error, undefined is not a function. So let's look into it. Let's come back to our sanity.js file and let's check where exactly we are going wrong. Okay, I think it should not be there in inside braces. That is an import statement. I'm not sure. So let's pretty much remove that out and save the file. Yep, I think that's right. Oh, there you go. It worked absolutely fine. Correct. So we pretty much have one movie inside of a backend. So that's working absolutely fine. That's nice. Correct. So let's go back to our home screen, and pretty much if you know console.log the movies data. So I'm gonna say console.log the movies data. Save the file. So as you can see, we have pretty much this single array. I mean an array with one item with all of these details that we saw. Okay, so that's the way we fetch the movies from our backend part. Okay, so it automatically worked because we are pretty much passing sorted data over here, and when we fetched the result we have set this also, that is set sorted data, right? So I think that's it. So the next thing we'll be looking into is we're gonna fetch all of the places from the backend too. So let's go back to our places screen, and over here let me initialize my use effect once more. So I'm gonna say use effect. So let's initialize our state first so that it is stored inside of the use state. So I'm gonna say const places. Okay, places is already defined, that is in the array. So I'm gonna say const cities comma set cities equals to use state. Over here also I'm going to provide an empty array at the initial state like this. So inside my use effect I'm pretty much going to say const fetch data equals to, it's going to be an async function. Okay, so over here pretty much I'm going to do the same thing that we did inside of our home screen. So I'm going to say const result equals to await fetch. Okay, make use of backticks over here, and let me just get the query. So instead of movie it's gonna be location. So I'm gonna copy that code and paste it over here. So after we fetch the result, I mean after this is executed, I'm gonna say set the cities to be in the result, right? Set cities to be the result, and pretty much save the file. Use state does not exist, so let's import that use state. Okay, let's come back to our use effect also doesn't exist. Let's import that too, use effect. Okay, so now over here pretty much we're gonna call the function first, that is fetch data like this, and let's try to console.log all of the cities. Okay, so let's remove all of the other console.logs if they are there. Okay, nothing is there. So I'm gonna say console.log of cities. Okay, so now let's save the file. Okay, network request failed. Okay, my bad, I didn't write client.fetch. Okay, so I'm gonna say client.fetch, pretty much import client from the particular folder like this. Okay, so I'm gonna save the file now. So as you can see, we pretty much have obtained 8 values, that is 8 objects inside of an array containing all of the city names, right? So now if we're gonna make the change inside the flat list, so instead of data to be the places, I want it to be the cities, and save the file. Okay, so instead of item.place it's gonna be item.city because that's the name we have given. So I'm gonna say item.city. So save the file. There you go, that's looking better. So now okay, there is something called as the ID over here. So this ID is very important in accessing all of the theaters for a particular movie of that particular location which we have selected, right? So we're gonna make use of this ID over here. So what I'm gonna do is, where we have the pressable button over here, I'm gonna say select city of item.place as well as item dot, okay, I think it's gonna be item.city over here too. Okay, and I'm also interested in this particular ID, right? So I'm gonna say item._id. So let's go to the select function over here. So along with the city, I want the location ID. Okay, so we already have initialized the context, that is the place context. So over here, I'm going to initialize one more piece of code, that is my location ID. So I'm pretty much going to say const location ID comma set location ID equals to use state, and initially I'm going to pass an empty string. So these two values are going to go over here. So I'm going to say location ID as well as the set location ID and save the file. So now let's come back to our places screen over here and pretty much get the location ID from the use context hook like this location ID. Okay, so when I press on the button, that is any one of the place, I'm gonna set it off. I'm gonna say set, let's access that too. Set location ID and make sure the spelling of both of them is correct. That is the same spelling we have given over here. Set location ID. Okay, so over here I'm gonna say set location ID of the location ID itself. Okay, and pretty much save the file, right? So yeah, so this location ID would already be set and we can use it at any point of our application. Okay, so this will come handy inside of our movie screen when we query all of the theaters for a particular selected location, right? So I think that's it. So I'm gonna save the file and yeah, so let's press on any one of the city. As you can see, everything is working normal, right? So the next step is we're gonna pretty much go into the movie screen, that is over here, and we're gonna pretty much query the theaters, okay, for that particular location. So firstly, let's try to access the location ID if at all it is set or not, just for checking. So I'm gonna copy pretty much this piece of code into my movie screen. Okay, I'm just interested in the location ID. So currently we have already selected the location. So let's try and console.log the location ID. Save the file. Let's go into our movie screen. And there you go. So this is our location ID, right? So now that's it. So the next step is we're going to query the theaters, right? So instead of all these theaters, I think we just need 2 theaters because that's what is there inside of our backend, right? So let's initialize the use effect over here. So over here, I'm going to initialize my use effect to fetch all of the theaters for that particular location. Okay, so I'm going to say use effect, and this query is a bit complex than the previous one. So I'm just going to paste the code for the query over here. Okay, so you can pretty much have a look at it. Okay, so basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to fetch the theaters based on the location. Okay, so that's why we're going to say underscore type equals to theater and location dot ref should be equal to the location ID. So what do I mean by this, right? So this query is going to pretty much fetch the theaters for that particular location. So if you go out to your Sanity over here, so firstly I'm going to pretty much search for theaters, location itself. Okay, and I'm going to press on fetch. Okay, so let's check out Bangalore, right? Because that's the location which we have currently selected. So that is there over here, this one, and look into the ID of Bangalore. That's going to be this value, right? Just remember the first 4 characters, that is 3CA725. Okay, so now if I check out the theater, so if you would remember in the theater document, we have given a reference to the location, right? So I'm going to say theater. Just remember these 4 characters or 5 characters, 3CA725. So now I'm going to fetch the details for the theater document. So let's say fetch, So if you check out element small, and over here if you check out the location, so can you see this? That is 3CA725. These two have a match. So based on this condition, we are fetching this this theater, right? So that's the way we are going to implement this, right? So as you can see, that's the same condition I've given over here. And along with this details, I also want the show times too, because if I press on the theater, below that I want to see the show times. Okay, so to access the show times, it's going to be this value. Okay, so the next thing we are interested in is we want this movie ID, correct? So the movie ID is, if you go to the movie card, if at all we press on the book button, we are coming to the next screen, that is the movie screen, correct? So now we're going to pass in the information over here, right? So let's check out the correct spelling. So it's going to be movie ID. So over here, where was that? Movie card. I'm going to pass in movie ID. So movie ID is of course going to be your item dot underscore ID, if I'm not wrong. I think that is the correct itself. So I'm going to say item dot underscore ID like this and save the file. Okay, so over here also, firstly let's initialize our use state. Over here I'm going to say const requested data comma set request data. Okay, equals to use state. Over here too, I'm going to pass in an empty array. Okay, so the next thing is I'm pretty much going to console.log my request data. So I'm going to say console.log of request data. So after we have initialized this function that is fetch theaters, I'm going to call it over here. So I'm going to say fetch theaters, right? So now pretty much hopefully we should be seeing theaters based on that particular location along with its show times as well. So let me save the file. Okay, we have an error, use effect is not initialized. So I'm going to say use effect. Okay, I'm not sure why so many movies came. I think inside the home screen we have given sorted data over here. Sorted data in the sense we pretty much have this use state initialized. Okay, where is sorted data? Yeah, this one that is coming from data, right? I think that's what is causing the error. I'm not sure, because as and when I save the file, firstly it's showing all of the films and then it's gonna fetch this, right? So let's just make some change. So set sorted data, let's keep this an empty array once. Okay, inside the home screen, and hopefully I think that should do, because for the data we are passing is sorted data. So initially it's going to be an empty array, and when we run this use effect, we are pretty much setting the data over here. I don't think we required this, so let's save the file. Yeah, I think now it's working better, correct, right? So now let's go back to our movie screen. Okay, and we're gonna make changes. We're gonna check if the theater's response is coming correctly or not. So save the file over here. Let's press on the book button, and okay, client doesn't exist. Again, we have not imported client, so let's import that from the required folder. Save the file. Okay, we are getting empty, as you can see. Let's remove all the other console.logs. Okay, I know why it is empty, because we have not selected the location. Okay, so I think at the end of the video we need to apply a condition that if at all the location is not selected, we can't book, correct? So I'm gonna select the location, let's say Bangalore, and then come back. So now I'm gonna press on the book button, and there you go, we have all of the theaters. We have pretty much 2 theaters, I guess. Okay, as you can see, this is the theaters, and along with the theaters, because of this piece of code that is over here, you can check that out once clearly. Okay, because of this show times, we have all of the IDs, we have the time, we have the row, we have all of the seats for that particular show time. Okay, we have even the theater and the time as well, right? So that's the way this thing works. So we pretty much have all of the details coming up. So now I'm gonna pretty much, instead of malls, it's gonna be your required data, this one, right? So I'm gonna remove that out. I'm gonna say required data, and now I don't think we need to filter because of the place, right? Because we are fetching it over here itself. We are fetching it based on the location. So I'm gonna remove the filter method, that's not required. And we do not want the gallery as well, I guess. I think we simply need to map over everything, and I think we just need to render the malls if I'm not wrong. So it's gonna be request data.map for every item. I think firstly we need to show the name, right? So I don't think we need this also. So to remove that, I think we need to remove this bracket as well. Just a minute. So over here also we do not want this. Nope, I think there is a bracket error. Okay, that is good. And pretty much I'm gonna render out a parenthesis like this. Over here. Okay, so let's format the document once and make sure you remove the filter method as well as this. Okay, so to access the name, it's gonna be item.name. Okay, you can pretty much check out the data in the console and work it out, right? It's gonna work properly itself. And the next thing is, if you press on that, set the mall to be item.name and not multiplex.name. That was a previously given name. Okay, and if mall.includes, again, instead of multiplex.name, it's gonna be item.name. Okay, and data is gonna be item.showtimes, as you can see. So instead of multiplex.showtimes, it's gonna be item.showtimes. And I think other than that, everything should be clear. Okay, make sure to just remove the filter method as well as the map method, that is item.galleria.map. That method should be removed because everything is done inside this query itself. So I'm gonna save the file. So as you can see, we pretty much have two theaters for that particular movie and for that particular selected place. Okay, I think we forgot to give the key, is it? So let's pretty much access the index, and over here I'm gonna say key equals to your index. Okay, so now if I press on the first mall, that is this one, elements mall. So if you check out your Sanity backend over here, desk, so show times. So for elements mall, we have two show times, that is 9 a.m, 9 o'clock. Okay, as you can see, this is the theater we have selected, and 10:20 also is for this thing, whereas 12 o'clock is for the other mall, that is Orion mall, right? So now let me press on this thing and let's check if we have given the correct time. Okay, so over here, as you can see, we have something called as the item, whereas inside our data we have something called as item dot time. Correct, as you can see. So I'm going to say item dot time. Save the file. Let's pretty much press on the first mall. There you go, we have two methods, two timings for elements mall, that is 10:20, 9 o'clock. For this we have just one. There you go, as you can see, we are getting 12. Okay, so now if at all I press on any one of the malls, we should be taken to the next screen showing that particular seats, right? So as you can see over here for a particular show time, so save the file. So let's say for 1020, so let's look for 1020. So as you can see, this is 1020 and this is the object pertaining to this. So over here, we're gonna send some props to the theater screen. As you can see, we have the row object, the row array, which is containing a row A, and the seats corresponding to row A with all of these details, that is booking status and the number. So I'm gonna send a bunch of information from the theater screen, from the movie screen to the theater screen, okay? Okay guys, I've just pasted a bunch of information that we need to pass from the movie screen to the theater screen. Some of them might be required, some of them may not be required. So just feel free to copy all of these values. That is basically the showtime, the mall name, the date, the name, that is router parameter title, the selected date, and I think we do not want, because we're passing it 2 times, the date as well as the selected date. You can remove any one of them. Let's say date, we're going to remove that. Okay, rows is going to be item.row, okay, because we are mapping over item.showtimes. As you can see, that's what we've given inside our data. So item is corresponding to each object inside the showtime array. So to access the row, it's going to be item.row. To access the underscore id, it's going to be item.underscore id. Okay, then for doc id, we're going to pass item.underscore id. That might be required inside of our theater screen. Okay, and the next thing we're going to look into is the showtime, and the showtime id. That's going to be the index. So index is going to come from over here, right? So these are some of the informations required in the theater screen. So let's save the file. So let's press on any one of the showtime, let's say this one, and we are coming to the theater screen. So let's go to the theater screen. Let's pretty much console.log all of our root.params, and let's check if all of the data is coming correct or not. So I'm going to say console.log root.params. So save the file. So as you can see, we are getting all of our data. That is the doc id, mall name, the rows, that is particularly the seats, and the selected date, showtime, and the showtime id. Okay, so now we will be looking into how we can design this theaters, right? So as you can see, previously in the backend, we do not have these many seats, right? We just initialized row A and some seats inside of row A. So we're gonna implement that part. So that's gonna happen firstly inside our UI part, that is inside the render seats method, right? So over here inside the render seats method, instead of rows.map, it's gonna be root.params.rows. Okay, so if you check out our root params, you can see over here. So to access the rows, it's going to be root.params.rows. So we're going to map through the rows that is coming from the backend for that particular showtime. Correct. So now, yeah, let's pretty much save the file. And before saving it, we have one change to make. Okay, here the row name is going to be row itself, whereas the seat name is going to be seat.number and not seat.seat. That's the one thing we need to remember and make changes for that. So over here inside our render seats method, firstly over here it's going to be seat.number. Okay, and over here handle seat press, this is going to be same row.row, and over here it's going to be seat.number. Okay, and the next thing is for the styles, over here row.row, and over here instead of seat.seat it's going to be seat.number. Okay, and I think inside our method where we are checking, I think this is going to remain the same itself. Yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully this should work. So save the file. So as you can see, that's working absolutely fine. You're able to select it, deselect it, and there you go, that's looking better, right? So the next step is, if at all I press on the pay button, instead of blocking the seats, we need to go into the next screen where we have the option to order the snacks, right? So for that reason, I'm going to create a new screen known as the food screen. So I'm going to say food screen.js rnfes to get the shorthand snippet, save the file, and let's include this food screen inside of our stack navigator. Okay, so over here home stack dot screen, name is gonna be food, component is food screen, import food screen from the screens folder and save the file. Okay, next step is come back to our movie screen, the theater screen. So if at all I go back and come to a different show time, let's say this one, as you can see it's a different theater, right? So now it's working absolutely fine. And if I go to this mall and select this show time, there you go, this too is different, right? So this is the way we wanted to implement. So now after selecting, and if I press on the pay button, we are going to initialize a different thing. So where we have pay, instead of performing this, that is instead of blocking the seats, so this was done just to understand how the logic works, right? So we're going to say navigation dot navigate to the name of the screen we want to navigate to. So inside the stack navigator, the name we gave was food, so I'm going to say food. Over here inside the theater screen, okay, over here also I'm going to pass in a bunch of information that is from the theater screen to the food screen. Okay guys, you can just pretty much copy all of these. So pretty much all of the same details that we obtained from the previous screen, that itself I'm passing to the next screen, right? That is the mall show time name, selected date, the seats and the rows, selected seats as well as the dock ID, right? So that's it. So the next step you're going to do is we're going to pretty much design the food screen, right? So I'm going to say save the file and let's press, I think we need to initialize one more thing, that is the result, right? So let me just check if we have initialized that in the previous video. Okay, I guess we have not initialized the result. So result is basically whatever we have selected, that is A1 and A2. We need to concatenate it and we are going to write it, right? So that I'm going to pretty much write it over here. That is just after the use layout effect. Okay, over here. So pretty much we are trying to map over it, that is the selected seats, and finally we are going to join it, right? So you can look at the code over here. And save the file. So let's press on the pay button and we are coming into the food screen. Okay, so let's go and design the food screen where we have a set of food items where we can add it to the cart and then go to the confirmation page. Okay guys, so inside the food screen I've just imported the data that is for the food item. So this is basically an array of objects. Okay, so this is going to have pretty much, let's say, 6 items, and for each object we have a unique ID, the name of the food item and the image of the food item and the description, the price, and whether it is veg or a non-veg item. Okay, so we're going to make use of this data and then we're going to render pretty much all of the items and then implement the add to cart functionality and the remove from cart functionality. Okay, so firstly I'm gonna initialize my flat list over here. So I'm gonna say flat list. Okay, or even before that I think we need to style out the header part where we have the buttons towards the left and right. Okay, so for that reason I'm gonna make use of a use layout effect. Okay, and I'm gonna run it just once when this component loads, and let's import use layout effect from React. Right, so the first thing I'm gonna say is firstly let's initialize my navigation. So I'm gonna say const navigation equals to use navigation. Okay, firstly here I'm gonna say header shown should be true. Okay, my bad, before this we have to say navigation dot set options. Okay, header shown, I'm gonna set it to be true. Okay, and after that header title, I do not want the header title to come at the center. Okay, so I'm just giving it a empty string like this, header title. and after that we have is the header left. Okay, this is pretty much gonna take in a function, and in this case I'm gonna render a text attribute which is gonna say order snacks like this. So save the file. So as you can see, that's working nice. So now let's give the style for the text over here. I'm gonna say font size of, let's say, 16 for now. Okay, yeah, I think that's looking better. So now after that we have is the header right part, where we have the button which says continue. I'm gonna say header right. Again, this is gonna take in a function to execute. So in our case, I'm gonna return a pressable. So I'm gonna say pressable, and inside this pressable we're gonna have a text attribute which is gonna say continue. Right, so let's give the style for the pressable. So I'm gonna say style. I'm pretty much gonna give it a border radius of 5, and it's gonna have a background color too. So I'm gonna give background color of this color code, that is F4A 460, and a bit of padding horizontal as well, and a bit of padding vertical, okay, of let's say 6, like this, and save the file. So as you can see, that's looking better. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make this text as a white color. So I'm gonna say style, firstly text align of center. Okay, and the color I want for this is, it's gonna be white. Okay, there you go. I think that's looking better. So now if at all we press on this button, that is if it's not compulsory to order the snacks, right? So I'm gonna say on press, we can directly navigate to the confirmation page. So over here I think pretty much it's gonna be the same thing that we have passed earlier, that is from the theater screen to the food screen. So let's just check out the details, that is whatever we want is correct or not. Okay, so pretty much we want the mall, the show time, the name, selected dates, seats, rows, selected seats, as well as doc ID. So the same thing, I'm pretty much gonna copy this. I'm gonna come over here. Firstly, initialize my route param. So I'm gonna say const route equals to use route. Let's auto import it like this, and pretty much I'm gonna paste it over here. Okay, so here I think firstly we need to create a screen, right? So let's go and create a new screen, that is the confirmation screen .js. Okay, here I'm gonna say rnfes to get the shorthand snippet, save the file. Let's initialize this screen inside of our stack navigator. So I'm gonna write home stack dot screen. So the name is gonna be confirmation, and component is gonna be confirmation screen. Okay, let's save the file over here. Let's come back to our, okay, we have some error, component confirmation. Okay, my bad, over here it should be home stack dot screen. Okay, so let's go from the firstly we need to select the location, otherwise we won't get the malls. Okay, and I think we were not able to see the tick mark over there, right, if at all we selected the location. So let's go and check out the condition inside our places screen, that is over here, where we have written the condition, that is if selected city equals to item dot place, instead of item dot place it should be item dot city, right? So now it should work. So as you can see, that's working fine. So now we're gonna pretty much go over here, select any one of the mall, select any one of the seats, and then pay button. Okay, so now if at all, let's come back to our food screen. Okay, on press we're gonna say navigation dot navigate to the confirmation screen. Okay, and these are the information that we're gonna pass. Okay, the same thing that we passed from the previous screen to this screen. So save the file. So now let's look into this data part of it, that is showing all of the food items in this screen. So for that, I'm gonna render a flat list. Okay, so it's gonna take the data attribute. So in our case, it's gonna be this particular data, right? Because that's where all of our food items are present in an array. So I'm gonna say data, and the next thing is I'm gonna say render item. This in turn is gonna take in the item, and we're gonna pretty much return a new component altogether. So firstly, let's go to the components folder and create a new component. Okay, so you can pretty much name it anything. Let's say product card .js rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. Save the file, and inside our flat list, I'm gonna say render a product card for each item inside of our flat list. So pretty much import product card from the components folder like this. Okay, and for the product card, I'm gonna pass in the item as the prop. So item in the sense it belongs to each object that is present inside of our data array, right? So I'm gonna say item equals to item, pretty much access the index, and we're gonna say key equals to index, right? So if I save the file, you should be seeing 6 times product card coming on the screen. So let's save the file. So as you can see, we have 6 times coming on the screen because we have pretty much 6 items inside of this data array, right? So for each item, we are entering the product card component, and inside the product card component, we simply have a text attribute. So for that reason, we are seeing it 6 times. So now let's style this out. Okay, so firstly, instead of this view, I want to use a pressable. So I'm gonna say pressable over here, pressable over here too, here as well. So save the file. So now let's come to the food screen, and over here I'm going to give the style for this a flex of 1, background color of this color code, and a bit of padding horizontal and vertical. Okay, like this, and I'm gonna save the file. Okay, so now let's come back to our product card and start designing our images. So the first thing inside this is I'm gonna import my image stack first. So let's remove the text, that's not required. So I'm gonna say image. It's gonna take in pretty much the source. In turn, it's gonna take in the URI. So let's check what exactly is the name. So to access the image, it's gonna be item.image. Okay. So I'm going to say URI as, firstly let's access the prop over here by restructuring it, that is item, because that's what we have given inside of our flat list. The same name should be there over here as well. So item, so to access the URI, it's going to be item.image. Okay, so let's pretty much give some styling for the image over here. So I'm going to say style, width of 100%, and I'm gonna give it a specific height of, let's say, 150, and the resize mode of cover, and a slight border radius of 5. Okay, so let's pretty much save the file. So as you can see, we are able to see the images, but we want the images to be in 2 columns. Okay, so to do that, I'm gonna go back to my food screen, and over here I'm gonna say number of columns is gonna be 2. And I'm also going to say show vertical scroll indicator, and I'm going to set it to be false. Okay, so these are some of the props we just added. So I'm going to save the file. Okay, I think we need to do it again. So select the location first, and we're going to select the movie. Okay, select any one of the seat. Okay, we're still not able to see the images, right? So let's remove this once. Okay, I think yes, there is some error when we pretty much use the num columns method. Okay, num columns is 2, but still we are not able to see the images when we uncomment this piece of code. So let's see why exactly it's happening. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's see what exactly is causing this error, right? When I write num columns equals to 2, it's not showing all of the images. So let's check out our product card. Okay, we've given the image. Okay, I think we've not given a flex of 1 to the entire container. I think for that reason it's not showing up. So I'm going to say style, a flex of 1 to this, and I'm going to give it a background color of white and a bit of margin, that is external spacing, and a slight border radius of 7, and pretty much save the file. So there you go. I think that's looking better. So the next thing we're going to look into is format once. I think we need to give some internal spacing, that is padding, also padding of 10. Okay, so that it gets filled inside the container, and I'm going to give a justified content of space between. Okay, even that is good. Let's also give the flex direction of column and justify content of space between. Yep, I think that's looking better. So now after that, after the image, we have is pretty much another view to show the name as well as the price container. So I'm going to say view with a text attribute. So to access the name, I'm simply going to say item.name. Okay, there you go. That's looking better. And let's give some margin bottom to the image. So I'm going to say margin bottom of 12. Okay, save the file. And some part of the text is taking up the, it's not taking the upper space. So let's look into that. Why is it not taking that space? So I think firstly let's style out the remaining part. So after the text we have is another view. It's gonna have a text attribute. So pretty much I'm gonna say item dot price. Okay, that's looking better. So after this we have is the pressable, which is gonna contain a text with the add button. Okay, so for this view I'm gonna say style, flex direction of row, align items of center, and justify content of space between. Okay, so it goes to the rightmost part, and for this view I'm going to give a space on the top because it's almost touching the top text. Over here I'm going to say margin top of 10. Okay, yeah, I think that's looking good. So the next thing is we're going to style out this pressable, give it a nice background color. So I'm going to say style, background color of this color code, and a slight border radius, and a padding horizontal, and a bit of padding vertical. Okay, so save the file. Yep, that's looking okay. So now for the text I'm gonna give the style. I'm gonna say text align of center, font size of 13 or 12, and a color of white, and I'm gonna give font weight of 500. Okay, so save the file. Yep, I think that's looking better. And let's give the styles for the price over here. So I'm gonna say font size of 17 and a font weight of 600. Okay, or let's decrease it to be 16, 15. I think 15 looks better. So now we need to look into this part, that is, the text part, since it's taking up, it's not taking up the upper space. So let's look into where exactly we have gone wrong. Okay, I guess we forgot to give the style for the parent container. That's the reason it's not, showing up correctly. So I'm going to say style. So I'm pretty much going to say a flex of 1, and I'm going to give a justify content of space between. Okay, and then we want the flex direction to be column. Okay, there you go, that's looking better. Okay, so the next thing is we're gonna pretty much give a slight styling to this, font size of 15 and a font weight of 400. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to initiate Redux so that we can pretty much add the items to the cart as well as remove items from the cart. Okay, so for that reason, I'm going to initialize the Redux toolkit. So go to Chrome and then head over to this link, that is reduxtoolkit.js.org, and press on get started. Let's install two things, that is the Redux toolkit and React Redux. So I'm pretty much going to copy this inside my terminal. Over here, make sure you install this inside the main directory. So I'm going to say yarn add this particular dependency, and let's also say yarn add React Redux. Okay, so now we're going to write the functionality for the add to cart as well as the remove from cart. So I'm going to open up my file tree, create a new file, that is the cart reducer .js. Okay, RNFES to get the shorthand snippet. So save the file, and okay, not this one. So here we're going to write the functionality for adding the item to the cart, right, and the other functionalities as well. So the first thing is to import our create slice method. So I'm going to say import create slice from Redux JS/toolkit. Okay, from that particular dependency which we installed right now. And after that, I'm going to say export const cart slice equals to, here we're going to initialize our create slice method. This is going to take in three things, that is the name, the initial state, and all of our reducers. Okay, so first thing is the name. I'm going to say name. So since we are building a cart system, I'm pretty much going to give cart. Okay, so the initial state, so since we are having a cart in our app, so of course it's going to have certain items inside of it. So for that reason, I'm going to say initial state is going to be cart, and we're going to give it an empty array at the initial state. Okay, so after this we have all of our reducers coming up. So I'm going to say reducers like this. So this is pretty much an object. So here we're going to define our first reducer, that is add to cart. Okay, so this in turn is going to take in the state and the action. Okay, so let's think how we can implement this particular functionality, that is add to cart. Okay, so first of all, we check if at all a particular item is already present inside a cart or not. So if at all item is present inside the cart, then in that case, if we press on the add button or the plus button, we should simply increment the quantity of that particular item, right? If at all the item is not present inside the cart, that means if the cart is empty, that is at the initial state, which is right now over here, then in that case we should add that particular item to the cart, or that is to this particular cart that we have initialized. Okay, so firstly, as I told, let's check our condition. So I'm going to say const item present equals to state. So to access the cart, it's going to be state dot cart. Okay, I'll be making use of the find method in JavaScript. So I'm going to say dot find if the item dot id equals to the action dot payload dot id. Okay, if this condition becomes true, then that means we have the item inside our cart. So I'm going to say if the item is present, so I'm pretty much going to say item present dot quantity plus plus. Okay, else if at all our item is not present, we are pretty much going to push that item into this particular cart, right? So to push, I'm going to say pretty much the same thing, state dot cart dot push whatever is there inside our action dot payload, that is basically the details of that particular item, and I'm going to initialize a quantity of 1 for that particular item, since there is no quantity initialized inside of our food object, right? So save the file. So that's it about the add to cart functionality. So the next thing we'll be looking into is the remove from cart functionality. So this in turn as well is going to take in the state and action. Okay, so here we will be making use of the filter method to remove that particular item from the cart. So I'm going to say const remove from cart equals to access the cart, it's going to be state dot cart dot filter. For every item, I'm going to say the condition, that is item dot id should not be equal to the action dot payload dot id. Okay, I think we have some error. Okay, no errors, good. So this is the condition that we are working on, that is with the help of this condition, that is by applying the filter method, we are going to remove that particular item from the cart. So after removing, I'm pretty much going to equate it to the cart itself. So I'm going to say state.cart equals to remove from cart. Okay, so that was it about the remove from cart functionality. So the next thing we'll be looking into is the increment quantity. So I'm going to say increment quantity. So this in turn is going to take in the state and the action. Okay, and over here also firstly we're going to check if at all the item is present inside the cart. So I'm pretty much going to copy the first condition. Okay, of course if it is present, I'm just going to say item present dot quantity plus plus. Okay, the next and the final one is decrement quantity. So this in turn is going to take in our state and action, right? So here firstly we're going to pretty much check the same condition again, that is if at all our item is present inside the cart. Okay, so this is going to be applied on the plus button and this is going to be applied on the minus button. Okay, so I'm gonna firstly check the condition that if at all the item present dot quantity equals to 1. Okay, so if it is equal to the 1, and then if you press on the minus button, then in that case we should pretty much remove that item from the cart and we should show the add button again for that particular item, right? So for that case, I'm gonna pretty much copy this piece of code, const remove from cart, and I'm going to say state.cart equals to remove from cart. Yeah, simply removing the item from the cart if at all the quantity is 1 and if the user presses on the minus button. Okay, else let's say if the quantity is greater than 1, let's say 2, 3, 4, like that, in that case we should just decrease the quantity by 1. Okay, so I'm going to say item present dot quantity minus. Okay, so that's it. So these were the 4 functionalities that we worked on, that is add to cart, remove from cart, increment quantity, as well as decrement quantity. Okay, so now we need to export all of our details. So I'm going to say export const add to cart, remove from cart, increment quantity and decrement quantity equals to my cart slice dot actions. The next thing is we're going to say export default cart slice dot reducer. Okay, so pretty much save the file. So the next step is to create a store. Okay, so Redux is going to have a main store where all of the data gets pushed into it. So I'm going to say open the file tree. Let's create a file known as the store.js. So I'm going to say store.js. Okay, so inside this file we are going to pretty much initialize our reducers. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my method, that is configure store, from Redux toolkit, and I'm going to say export default configure store, use that method. So this in turn is going to take in the user, and towards the left hand side we need to pass the name. So I'm going to give the name as cart, and I'm going to import my cart user from that particular file like this. Okay, so pretty much save the file. We have created our store. So the next step is to create a provider at our main app.js so that we can start working with all of our functionalities. So I'm going to say provider imported from React Redux, and pretty much place all of these inside of our provider. Okay, and over here we're going to say store is going to be our store. Let's import store from the store file like this. Okay, so now we have created the environment for Redux, so we can pretty much use all of these details. I mean, all of these functionalities, that is add to cart, remove from cart, increment quantity, as well as decrement quantity. Okay, so to use this, we're going to go back to our product cart, right? So firstly, let's select the location, and let's pretty much select some of the seats. Okay, so if at all I press on the add button, we're going to initiate the dispatch event, and we're going to run the function that is add to cart and the remaining others as well. Okay, so firstly we're going to initialize on press event on the add button over here. So I'm going to say on press like this, and I'm going to take in a function, and I'm going to write add item to cart. Okay, so this is going to take in the item itself that is coming from the props. Okay, so I'm going to say over here item. So let's define this function right at the top over here. So I'm going to say const add item to cart. It's going to take in the item as the parameter, and over here we're going to dispatch the action that is add item to cart. Okay, so firstly let's try to access our cart and let's see if it's working correctly. So to access the cart, we're going to make use of the use selector hook, and to push items into the store, we'll be making use of the use dispatch hook. Okay, so firstly to access the cart, I'm going to say const cart equals to use selector. Okay, import it from React Redux like this, access the state. Okay, so to access the cart, firstly it's going to be state dot the reducer name. So if you check out our store, it is cart that we have given as the reducer name. So it's going to be state dot cart, and to access the cart inside of our initial state, that is inside our cart reducer.js file. So to access this particular value, we have to say dot cart, since this is inside of an object. Okay, so it's going to be state.cart dot cart. Okay, so pretty much I'm just going to say console.log of cart. Okay, so let's pretty much save the file and check out a console.log. So as you can see, we have an empty array. Okay, so it is showing pretty much 6 times because we are console.logging inside the product cart. Okay, if you just pretty much paste this piece of code inside of your food screen, you should be seeing it just once, because since we are mapping over it using the flat list, you're seeing it 6 times. Okay, let's remove the console.log over here. Let's just put the console.log over here, save the file. Okay, use selector doesn't exist, so import use selector. So pretty much let's do this again. Okay, that's weird. Again, it's showing 6 times. Okay, never mind, but we are getting an empty array, right? That's what's important. Let's try this out inside our... Okay, I've not saved the file, my bad. Okay, so hopefully it should work now. Let's uncomment it. So there you go. We are getting a single array, okay, which is empty at the initial state. Okay, so now we'll be making use of the use dispatch hook, okay, to push the items inside of our store. So let's come back to our product cart. So first let's initialize our dispatch. So I'm going to say const dispatch equals to use dispatch. Okay, import that from the React Redux. Okay, so when we press on the add button, I want to dispatch the event that is add to cart. Import that from the cart reducer file like this. Okay, and the payload I'm going to provide is the item itself. This item in the sense whatever item I press on, that is coming from the props. Okay, so I'm going to save the file. Okay, so when I press on the add button, this function is going to get executed and we're going to say dispatch add to cart of item. So this is going to go into the cart reducer file over here. So it's going to execute this piece of code. So firstly it's going to check if our item is already present, right? So it's going to execute this line, that is state.cart.find. Okay, it's not going to work because our array is completely empty, right? So it automatically goes into the else condition and it's going to execute this piece of code, that is state.cart.push whatever is there inside of our action.payload. So inside our action.payload, of course the item details are there, and we're going to initiate a quantity of 1 along with the action.payload for that particular item. Okay, so that's how this function is going to execute. So let's come back to a product card and save the file. So if I press on the first item, let's say, okay, so as you can see, the first item has been added to the cart, and this is the action.payload. Along with it, we have initiated a quantity of 1 for that particular item. Okay, so that's how this is working. So now let's say if I press on the add to cart button, if at all the cart has that particular item, then we should show the minus button, the quantity, and the plus button. Okay, so that will be done just after the price over here. Okay, so we have access to the cart, so I'll be applying a condition. I'm gonna say cart dot, I'll be making this with the sum method in JavaScript. Okay, it's gonna take in basically a callback. Okay, I'm gonna check the condition, that is if the value dot id from the cart equals to the item dot id. Okay, this item dot id is coming from the props over here. As you can see, it has something called as id. This is from the cart, and we are checking from the data, right? So save the file. If this is the case, that means we have the item inside of our cart, right? If we have the item inside of our cart, we are gonna show a different design, that is the minus button, the quantity, and the plus button. If at all the item is not present inside of a cart, we are gonna show this design itself, that is the add button design. So in the else condition, I'm gonna paste the add button. So let me just get the code for this design. Okay guys, I've just pasted the code for the design of the pressable. So as you can see, we have a outer pressable, which is going to contain 3 more pressables inside of it. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. So this is corresponding to the minus button, this is corresponding to the value, that is the quantity, and this is corresponding to our plus button. And for the outer pressable, this is the style I've given, that is flex direction of row and a bit of padding vertical. And let's check out the code for the minus button. Okay, so pretty much for the style of the pressable, we have given the width, height, and a border color, a background color, and pretty much these 2 styles. You can check it out. And for the styling of the text, I've given this piece of styling, that is font size, font weight, text align, and color of white. Okay, I think the same piece of styling is given for the remaining pressables as well. So let's check out for the quantity one. Okay, so the text for the styling is this thing. I mean the style of this text, which is going to contain the quantity, is going to be this one. You can check it out. And for the final one, it's going to be the same as the minus button. Okay, same width and height, same color, and the same thing over here as well for the text attribute. Okay, so pretty much it's going to contain 3 pressables. Okay, first is for the minus button, and for the quantity, and for the plus button. Okay, so now let's initialize our state for the quantity. So here we'll be making use of just the use state to do that. So I'm going to say const add items comma set add items equals to use state. Okay, so initially it's going to have a quantity of 1. Okay, so let's pretty much uncomment this one. You're going to say add items, right? So whenever we press on the plus button, I'm going to initialize the on press event. So I'm going to say on press. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the quantity inside the use state. So I'm going to say set add items to be whatever is the existing value, and I'm just going to say increase it by 1. And after doing that, I'm going to dispatch the event that is increment quantity. So I'm going to say dispatch. Okay, call the increment quantity, import it from the cart reducer file like this one. Okay, and the payload is going to take in as the item itself that is coming from the props, this one. Okay, so similarly for the minus button, let's pretty much copy this, and for the minus button I'm going to paste it over here. Okay, and instead of +1 I'm going to say -1, and instead of dispatching increment quantity I'm going to dispatch decrement quantity of item. So save the file. Use state does not exist. Okay, let's import that out from React. Okay, so save the file. Let's pretty much follow the process from the start. Okay, so as you can see, our first item has been added into the cart. Okay, so pretty much this condition worked, that is cart.sum, that is value.id, that is present inside the cart, is equals to the item.id that is coming from our data. So since this condition is true, we are going to show this particular design, and currently add items is equals to 1 because that's the initial quantity when we press on any one of the add button, right? So save the file, and let's say if I press on the plus button, this event should get triggered off. Okay, along with this we are going to increase the quantity, and in the increment quantity we are pretty much trying to give the quantity, increase the quantity by +1. So let's try that out. So as you can see, so similarly if I press on the minus button, it keeps on decreasing. Okay, when the quantity becomes 1, we are pretty much gonna remove that item from the cart. Okay, with the help of this functionality that we have already written, that is this one. If at all the item present quantity equals to 1, we are trying to remove that item from the cart. Okay, so let's come back over here. So let's press on the minus button. So as you can see, that item has been removed. Our array is empty, and pretty much we can see the add button again. Okay, so now if at all we have a add button, we're going to show some UI over here so that we can navigate to the next screen after adding some items to the cart. Okay, so for that reason I'm going to go back to my food screen, and I'm going to show some design over here. So firstly, let's have access to our total. Okay, I'm going to calculate the total over here. So I'm going to say const total equals to, I'm going to say cart dot, I'm going to use the map function. I'm going to access the item. Firstly, I'm going to multiply the item dot price multiplied by the item dot quantity. Okay, so this is going to give us the value for one item inside of the cart. So let's say if you have more items, okay, then in that case you're gonna add up all of the prices, right? So to do that I'm going to use the reduce method further. Okay, so this is going to take in basically the current value and the previous value, and I'm going to pretty much say give me the current plus the previous value, and the initial value I'm going to provide as 0 for the reduce method. Okay, so this should give us the total value. So I'm going to say console.log of total. So save the file. Okay, so as you can see, the total is currently 0 because there are no items present inside the cart. Okay, so if at all I press on the add button, so as you can see, the total is 180. That is 180 into 1. Okay, so yeah, that's working absolutely fine. So if at all there is any item present inside of the cart, we should show UI over here so that we can navigate to the next screen, right? So before that, let's come into the product card once. Okay, so let's make some changes inside of the on press of the minus button. Okay, so if at all I press on the minus button and again I press on the add button, it's going to show 0, right? So we're going to handle that condition. So we're going to check the condition that if at all the add items equals to 1, and in that case if we press on the minus button, we're gonna say set add items to be 1 and pretty much include this also. Else it's gonna be the same thing, that is decrease the quantity of the item and dispatch the decrement quantity. Okay, so save the file. So if at all we do not do this, what happens is, let's say if you press on the minus button, then again this is gonna get executed. Okay, so it becomes 0, and again if you press on the plus button, we are just rendering add items over here, right? So again it's gonna show 0 instead of 1. So to handle that condition, we're gonna pretty much use this. Okay, so save the file and let's come back to our food screen. And over here, just beneath the flat list, we're gonna write the condition, that is if at all our total equals to 0, then just show null, else we're gonna show this particular design. So I'm gonna initialize a pressable over here. Pressable is already imported, and for the pressable we're gonna give it a background color. So firstly we're gonna initialize a view. So inside this view, it's gonna have a view again, which is gonna contain a text. Okay, so which is gonna give us the number of items. So to access the number of items, it's pretty simple. I'm gonna say cart.length, right? And after this, I'm gonna show the total price too. So save the file. So as you can see, this is 1, that means we have 1 item in the cart, and this is the price, that is 180. Okay, and after that, after this view, we have a pressable, which is gonna say a text with the proceed. Okay, so for this view, I'm gonna give the style, that is a flex selection of row, align items of center. Okay, and justify content of space between. Okay, so save the file. Okay, so now I'm gonna give the styling for the auto pressable. So I'm pretty much gonna say style over here. I'm gonna give a background color for this with this color code, that is FEBE10, a bit of internal spacing, that is padding of 10. Okay, and a position of absolute. Okay, a bottom of 5 and left of 40. Okay, and a slight border radius of 4. Okay, so save the file and let's give it a specific width as well of 90%, and the left value, let's make it to be 20 or 30, and the bottom, let's increase it to be 10. Okay, and the next thing we're going to look into is we're going to pretty much have one more piece of text beneath this. We're going to say extra charges will apply. So save the file and then we're gonna pretty much style this out. I'm gonna say style, a bit of margin top, and I'm gonna give it a color of white. Okay, and over here we're gonna say items, and this is the total price. Okay, that's good. So the next thing we'll be looking into is we're gonna pretty much style this out. So font size 15 and font weight 500. Okay, so same piece of styling for this text as well. Okay, I think that's looking better. So the next thing we'll be looking into is if at all we press on the proceed button, we will be taken to the next screen. Okay, so I'm going to initialize the on press event on this one. I mean just the proceed button. So on press. Okay, here we're going to say navigation dot navigate to the confirmation screen, and pretty much we're just gonna paste in whatever we pasted earlier, that is this one. Okay, that's it. Save the file. Okay, so yeah, I think we are done with the design and implementation of this screen. Okay, there is one more part that is left out. So if you come back to the previous screen, okay, we need to handle the design of this part. So firstly, let's come back to our theater screen, and firstly I'm going to make this a scroll view. So I'm going to say scroll view over here. Okay, so instead of the normal view, I'm going to say scroll view. Okay, scroll view has already been declared, my bad. Okay, where is that error? Okay, align items must be applied to the content container style. Oh, okay. I think for this one, let's pretty much paste it over here. Okay, my bad. I think I made a big mistake because I was changing it over here, right? So that should be the same thing. I was making the change in the render seats method. That's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. You're gonna make the change over here. Okay, scroll view is already initialized. We're gonna make the change inside the return block and not in this method. Okay, I was making the change over here. Okay, so my bad. Over here I'm gonna say scroll view, and the same thing over here at the bottom, scroll view. Okay, so now let's pretty much select the location and head over to the theater screen. Okay, now that's looking better. So as you can see, this is scrollable. Now after the scroll view that is over here, firstly let's initialize a fragment. Okay, so after this I'm gonna put it over here. So pretty much after the scroll view, I'm gonna apply the condition, that is if the selected seats dot length is greater than 0, then that means we have something selected, right? Okay, my bad, they should come inside over here. Okay, else we're gonna show something else. Okay, so if at all we have some of the seats selected, then in that case I'm gonna initialize my pressable over here, right? Over here I'm gonna give it a text attribute, okay, which is gonna have the selected seats dot length, that is the number of seats selected, and along with that we're gonna give a message which says seats selected, and over here we're pretty much gonna show the result. Result is already been calculated, that is just by calculating, that is just by concatenating all of the seats, that is this method. Okay, so all of the seats will be stored over here inside the result container. So that's what I'm rendering over here. Okay, that is over here, and after that we have is a pressable. Okay, so this is gonna pretty much have a text attribute, and it's gonna say a payment or just proceed. Okay, and yeah, let's give the styling for this particular auto pressable. So I'm gonna give it a background color of this color code, that is FEBE10, a bit of padding, that is 20, and a flex direction of row, align items of center, and justify content of space between. Okay, so the next thing is If at all we do not have the seat selected, so again over here I'm going to initialize a pressable. So this is going to have a text which says 0 seats selected. Again I'm going to give a different background color for this. I'm going to say style background color of this color code, that is D3, 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 the same amount of padding as the previous one, and yeah, that's it. So now let's format it once and let's save the file. So as you can see, currently there is a 0 seat selected, and we can remove this piece of code, right? So now where was that? Okay, just beneath this, I think this one, you can remove that out or just comment that out. Okay, that's looking fine. So now for this over here, I'm going to give the style, that is text align of center. Okay, so if at all we select any one of the seats, then it's going to show this particular UI, that is this one. So let's select pretty much 2 seats. So as you can see, 2 seats selected, that is A1 and A2. This is coming from the result value. Okay, so let's pretty much style this out. So I'm going to say style, font size of 15, font weight of 500. Okay, so same piece of styling for the upper text as well. Okay, yeah, that's looking better. So now if you press on the proceed button, we will be taken to the food screen, right? So over here, I'm going to say on press navigation dot navigate to the, I think we pretty much have, I think we can pretty much, initiate this pay event, I mean the pay function, instead of doing this. So I'm just going to say on press equals to pay. Okay, because we already had a function for this pressable over here, right? So the same function is going to execute for this one, and we're going to navigate to the food screen like this. Okay, so that's it. So the next step is, if at all we press on the proceed button, we're gonna go to the confirmation screen. Okay, property result does not exist. Let's look into that. So if you come to the food screen, okay, it's asking for the result, right? So let's pretty much calculate the result over here. So for that, let's go into the theater screen and let's pretty much copy this out, come back to the food screen. Okay, let's paste it over here. So instead of selected seats, I think it's gonna be the root.params.selected seats. So I'm gonna say root.params.selected seats. Okay, so hopefully this should work. So let's check if we have the correct spelling over here. So from the theater screen, we are sending the information over here, that is selected date, selected seats. Yeah, I think it should pretty much work. So save the file. So let's press on proceed. Okay, selected seats does not exist, is it? Okay, where is that? Okay, this one. Yeah, it should be root.params.selected seats. So proceed. Yep, we are coming into the confirmation screen, right? So now inside this screen, we're going to design all of the details of the film and the mall which is selected and the seats which are selected, and we'll be initiating our Razor Pay gateway so that we can pay that particular amount and then navigate to the final screen, that is the ticket screen. Okay, so let's start designing our confirmation screen over here. So I'm going to say view over here. Just after the first view, I'm going to initialize my second view. Let's remove this piece of text. Okay, let's pretty much initialize our root params to access all of our required values. So I'm going to say const route equals to use route. Okay, import that from React navigation /native. Okay, let's pretty much check whatever is the details that is coming from the previous screen. So I'm going to say root.params and save the file. So as you can see, we pretty much have all of these details, that is the doc ID, the mall, the name, the rows, Okay, that is particularly the seats and these seats and the selected dates and the selected seats array. Okay, including the show time as well. So now we're gonna make use of this information and then we're gonna render it on the screen. So firstly, I'm gonna give the style for the second view. So I'm pretty much gonna say style, a background color of white, and it's gonna have some internal spacing, that is a padding of 10. Okay, and a slight border radius of 6. So I'm going to say border radius of 6, and this is the external container. This is going to have, let's say, a padding of 20. Okay, so now let's start writing all of our codes inside this container that's going to have the background color of white, right? So firstly, I'm going to initialize my view over here. This is going to have a text attribute, okay, where I'm going to render pretty much the name. So it's going to be root.params.name. Okay, save the file. So pretty much I'm trying to render the name of the film. Okay, so this container is going to have this gray color background, whereas our confirmation container, it's going to have the white color background. Inside it, it's going to have all of the details. Okay, so for the text, I'm going to provide some styling. So I'm going to say font size of 15 and a font weight of 500. Okay, and after that, okay, so pretty much over here we need to show the languages. Okay, so for now I'm actually hard coding it because we have not passed the language from the initial screen to the screen. So I'm just I'm gonna hard code it with its original language like this. Okay, so for this I'm gonna give some piece of styling. So I'm gonna say a margin vertical of, let's say, 4, and it's gonna have a color of gray. Okay, and not sure why it's taking that extra space towards the right. Okay, so yeah, so after that we have is the second text, the third text, which is gonna contain pretty much the selected dates. Okay, so let's give the font size of 15 to this and check if it's in the correct direction. Okay, let's remove that out. Okay, so the next thing I told is the selected dates. So it's pretty much gonna be root.params dot to select the date. I think it is, okay, we have the show time, we have the, yeah, it's gonna be selected date, that is this one. So I'm gonna say dot selected date like this and save the file. Okay, yep, that's looking better. Okay, now I got to know it's taking an extra space because of this space we have given just before the U, right? So I'm gonna put a backspace and then there you go, that's looking better now. Okay, let's not give the space over here. Okay, never mind. So after that is we are gonna have our second view just after this one. So I'm gonna say view. So this in turn is gonna have another view. Okay, so over here we are pretty much gonna return the mall name. So I'm gonna say text. So this is gonna be the root dot params dot to access the mall name. It's gonna be dot mall, as you can see over here. So I'm just gonna say root dot params dot mall. Okay, that's looking better. I think we need to give a sort of separator just after the date and before the mall. Okay, so for that I'm gonna initialize my view. That's gonna be a single view that is enclosed in a single tag, and I'm gonna give the style for this so that this acts as a separator between the date as well as the name of the mall. Okay, so I'm gonna give it a height of 1, a slight border color of this color code, okay, and a border width of 1, and pretty much some margin top since it's almost touching the top text of 6, and save the file. So as you can see, that's looking better. And for this particular view I'm gonna give a margin top as well. So I'm gonna say margin top of 8. Okay, yeah, but that's looking good. So now after this one, it's gonna have another text over here, which is pretty much gonna have the mall number. Okay, so you can pretty much give your own name over here like this and save the file. Okay, so after this we're gonna pretty much render the seats. Okay, so let's style this up. So I'm gonna say style, font size of 15 and a font weight of 500 and a slight margin top as well. Okay, so let's give the same piece of styling for the top text, that is this one. Okay, let's remove the margin top. Yep, that's looking better. Okay, and let's give this a different color. Let's say this one. Okay, that's too light. I think gray looks better. Okay, so after this we are pretty much gonna render the seats, that is the selected seats. So for that I'm gonna initialize my third text inside this view, that is over here. So to access the seats, pretty much it is stored inside of the selected seats, just seats. Okay, so we can render a1 and a2, right? So I'm just gonna say root dot params dot seats. Okay, so there you go, that's looking better. So let's format it once. Okay, so we pretty much have two views which is going to contain three texts inside of it. This is the first one. Okay, three texts, and this is a separator. Okay, and this is the second view. I think we can pretty much remove the inner view, that's not required. Okay, so these are our two views which is going to contain three pieces of information. So for this I'm going to say style, let's give it a color of red, and I'm going to give it a slight margin top of, let's say 4, and yeah, let's save it once. And yeah, font weight is gonna be 500. Okay, yep, I think that's looking better. So now after this view I'm gonna initialize my another view, and before that I'm gonna pretty much copy the separator. Okay, and I'm gonna paste it over here. So save the file. So after this separator we're gonna initialize our new view. So I'm gonna say view. Okay, inside this view I'm gonna pretty much show all of the details of the prices, that is total price and all of those details. So I'm pretty much gonna say total, and over here I'm pretty much gonna render the grand total, right? So over here, to calculate the grand total, it's gonna be firstly the ticket price plus the convenience fee, and if at all there are any snacks selected, we need to add all of those, right? So firstly let's try to access the cart. So we have already calculated that in the previous screen, I guess, that is in the theater screen or the product card. Okay, let's pretty much access the cart over here, and inside the food screen I guess we have calculated the total. Yeah, you can pretty much copy this piece of code. Okay, that's better. So now after this, okay, so let's say we have a single price for all of the seats inside of a theater, right? Let's say let's just keep it as, let's say 220. Okay, we are gonna calculate that. So pretty much we have access to the selected seats, right? So if I pretty much get the length of the selected seats, that is going to give me the number of seats which are selected, right? So currently there are two seats selected, so a1 dot a2, a1 and a2. So if I pretty much calculate the length of this, I'm going to get 2, right? So I'm going to multiply that value into 220. So over here, firstly I'm going to say const ticket price, const ticket price equals to, I'm going to access root dot params dot, I'm going to access this piece of code, that is selected seats. Okay, so selected seats dot length, this is going to give me the number of tickets. Okay, so in our case it's going to be 2, and this value I'm going to multiply it with the ticket price for one single ticket, let's say 220. Okay, so that's our ticket price for this particular seats. Okay, that is a1 and a2, and after that I'm going to add let's say a fee of 87. Okay, and next I'm going to initialize my another variable, let's say grand total. Over here I'm pretty much going to add all the values, that is ticket price plus the fee and then the total price, that is from the food, right? So save the file. Use selector doesn't exist, so let's import that from React Redux. Okay, so let's pretty much select the place. Okay, so now let's try to console.log the grand total value over here. So I'm going to say console.log grand total. Okay, so it's pretty much 707, that is 87 plus 220 into 2. Okay, that is 440, and then we are calculating the total price that is coming from the cart. Okay, so the final result is 707. So pretty much we're gonna render that over here, that is in the place of the grand total, right? So I'm gonna come down over here. So total, here it's gonna be grand total. Okay, that's looking better. So for this view I'm gonna give the style margin top of 10, a flex direction of row, align items of center, and justify content of space between. Okay, so pretty much save the file. Okay, so yeah, you can see that working properly. So now pretty much we're gonna do this a couple of times. Okay, so here like this. So here instead of total I'm gonna say tickets, and after that I'm gonna show how many tickets were totally selected. So root.params.selected seats, to access the number of tickets it's gonna be dot length. Okay, so as you can see two tickets are selected, and over here I'm gonna show the price for the number of tickets. So it's gonna be root.params.selected seats dot length multiplied by 220. Okay, there you go, that's working properly, that is 440. So after that is we're gonna have one more view that is gonna render the price for our food and beverages. Okay, so over here I'm gonna say food and beverages. Okay, so here we are gonna render the total price for that. Okay, so there you go, it's totally 180 over here, and this is 440, and with the convenience fee added it's gonna show up the total price, that is 707. Okay, so that's it about all of these details. So the next thing is we are gonna show up all of the details of the food and beverages selected. That is gonna happen just beneath this view. So I'm gonna say view, and I'm gonna give it a margin top of 10. Okay, so anyhow we have access to the cart, so I'm gonna say cart dot map for every item and the index inside of our cart. I'm gonna render a view which is gonna give us all of the details of the cart, that is basically the snacks that we have selected. Okay, so inside this view I'm gonna access my text, which is gonna say item.name, to access the name of the item. Okay, so for the view I'm gonna say style, give it a gap of 6, and save the file. So as you can see, that's the item which we have selected. So we are gonna say key equals to index. Okay, so after that is a convenience fee. I'm gonna pretty much copy this view, paste it over here. So here we are gonna say convenience fee, and we're just gonna hard code the value over here. Okay, so now let's start styling up all of our texts. So here I'm gonna say style, font size of 16. Okay, and this is gonna have a font weight of bold. and the font size we're going to give it is 17. Okay, so let's pretty much access the rupee symbol. If you check out Chrome, you can just get it over here. Okay, and I'm gonna paste it over here, 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 and here as well. Okay, so save the file. Okay, that's looking better. So now for this piece of text that is going to contain the price, I'm going to say style, give it a font size of 15 and a font weight of 500. Okay, same piece of code, same piece of styling for the upper text. Okay, over here as well, over here as well, same thing goes with this too. Okay, there you go, that's looking better. So now after that we're gonna pretty much show up the button, that is the payment button. Okay, that's gonna come right after this view. So I'm gonna say pressable. Okay, so pressable is going to contain a text which is going to say pay, like this, and let's give some style to the pressable. So I'm going to say style. It's going to have a margin top of 10 and it's going to have a slight background color of this color code, that is FFC7 2C, and we're going to give it some internal spacing, that is a padding of 10 and a slight border radius of, let's say, 4. And I'm going to say justify content of center and align items of center. Okay, so save the file. So as you can see, that's looking better. So now for the text, I'm going to give the style. So I'm going to say style, a font size of 15 and a font weight of 500. Okay, yeah, so that's it. So if at all we press on the pay button, we should pretty much open up the ResoPay gateway and we should pay that particular amount, and then we should navigate to the ticket screen. Okay, and one more thing is, if at all you come to the screen after selecting the snacks or the pretty much the seats, you cannot go back to the previous screen. Okay, so if at all you want to go back, I'm going to show up a modal in the front part or a alert box at the center of the screen, such that if you press on it, you will be taken directly to the home screen. Okay, so we're gonna do that with the help of use effect. Okay, let's initialize our use effect over here, like this. Okay, so we're gonna write the code for Android as well as iOS. iOS, I'm not sure it's gonna work, but Android is gonna work for sure because I've tried it out. Okay, so here let me write the code such that if at all the user tries to press on the back button in Android, we're going to show up a modal such that we cannot navigate back to the previous screen, that is to the food screen. If at all we want to go back, we have to go back to the home screen, or we have to either pay the correct amount and then navigate to the ticket screen. Okay, I'm going to define a function over here. Let's say const. I'm going to say back action. Okay, it's gonna be a basic arrow function like this. Okay, so firstly let me get the alert message. You can pretty much get that from Chrome. So if you just type in alert React Native, okay, so the second link, and you can use, let's say, a 2-button alert. So just copy this piece of code and paste it over here. Okay, so that's the first thing you do when the user presses on the back button, that is show up this alert message. Okay, let's import alert from React Native. Okay, so the message is going to be want to end session. We're going to say go back to main screen. Okay, so now firstly, if at all we press on the OK, that is over here, we're going to say instead of console.log, I'm going to say navigation. Let's firstly initialize our navigation. So I'm going to say const navigation equals to use navigation. Okay, so if at all we press on the OK button, so I'm going to say navigation dot navigate. Okay, I mean instead of navigate, I'm going to say navigation dot reset like this, and this is going to take in the index of the screen we want to go to. So our home screen is present at the index 0 because that's the first screen which we have. So I'm going to say index 0 and I'm going to pass in the roots. Okay, so pretty much it's going to be name home screen. Okay, that's it. If you press on the OK button, automatically we will be taken to the home screen. So after this we have is I'm going to say return true just after the alert message over here. So I'm going to say return true, and over here I'm going to initialize const the back handler equals to back handler, import that from React Native dot add event listener. So this is gonna be hardware back press, and I'm gonna call this function. So whenever we press on the hardware back press inside of our Android, this is gonna get triggered off. So we pretty much should be seeing the alert message. Okay, so yeah, so pretty much I think let's remove this, that's not required. And yep, that's it. So over here I'm gonna say return the back handler dot remove. Okay, so this is the code for Android simulator or Android phone. Okay, so the problem in iOS is that if at all we use something pretty similar to this, it's gonna work, but after it goes back to the previous screen, it is showing the alert message. Okay, but we do not want that. In the same screen itself we should show. Okay, so to prevent that, we can pretty much add some of the options inside of the use layout effect such that we cannot scroll back. So I'm going to say use layout effect, import that from React as such, and this itself is going to run just once. Okay, anyway our navigation is initialized. I'm going to say navigation dot set options. Okay, I'm going to say gesture enabled is false. Okay, so this is gonna work for iOS, but it's not gonna show up the alert box or something like that. And after that I'm gonna say gesture gesture direction is gonna be horizontal. Okay, so this piece of code will not allow you to go back to the previous screen, whereas this is gonna work absolutely fine. That is for Android. If at all you press on the back button in Android, this function is gonna get triggered off. So pretty much you should be seeing that alert, and if you press on OK, you would be taken to the directly to the home screen because that's the route which we have passed. Okay, so the next thing we'll be looking into is the payment button, right? So we're gonna initialize on press event on the pay button, that is over here. So on press, I'm gonna say pay. Let's define this function right at the top. So I'm going to say const pay equals to an arrow function. Okay, so now currently the selected seats are this one, that is A1 and A2. Okay, I think let's even show the detail for the show time as well, because that is coming inside of our props, right? So I think pretty much we can do that right after the seats. Okay, so where we render the seats, that is, I think it is over here. I'm also gonna say a root dot params dot show time. Okay, there you go, that's looking better. Okay, so now we the selected show time is 10:20 and the selected mall is this one. Okay, and the seats which we have selected is A1 and A2. Okay, so if at all we press on the payment button, what we need to do is firstly we need to handle the payment, and if at all the payment is successful, we need to go into the backend over here. Okay, so this is our show time, right? So each show time over here, that is, this is a document, and each document it has three things, three show times, that is 12, 10, 20, and 9 o'clock. So each of these has a unique ID. Okay, so we need to make changes in this particular show time, right? Because that's what we have selected, 1020. Okay, so if you go to 1020 and if you go to the row part, we have selected these two, right? That is A1 and A2, which are currently false. So we should pretty much come into this particular document ID. Okay, so if you pretty much check out this button over here, which contains the three dots, okay, just press on inspect. You would be seeing the document ID of that particular timing, right? So this is the ID. So we need to come into this ID and we need to modify the booking status. Okay, so currently it's false and we should make it to be true. So let's say we come to 12 o'clock. For 12 o'clock we have a whole new different ID. So as you can see, this was different from the one which we saw over here, right? So we're gonna come into the respective ID of the selected show time. So currently 1020 selected, and anyhow we have the ID, right? So let me just inspect once more. So this is the ID 1FA10. So the same ID is present inside of our root params. So as you can see, 1FA ID 1FA10. So this was being passed right from the theater screen, right? So document ID is going to be root params document ID. So before that, I think it was passed inside the movie screen when we pressed on any one of the show time. So if you check out the movie screen, okay, so as you can see over here, document ID is going to be item._document ID, correct? So this is going to be used inside of our payment method. So let's come back to our payment screen over here, that is inside the confirmation. So firstly we're going to handle the payment. Okay, so to handle the payment, pretty much we need to install something, that is the Razorpay gateway, that is a dependency, and after that we need to get a key so that we can handle the payment. Okay, so firstly let's get into that. Let's first install a dependency, that is React Native Razorpay, to handle the payments. Okay, so for that I'm going to head over to Chrome, open up this link, that is React Native Razorpay, the first one. Okay, so let's install this using yarn, or you can use this as well for expo users. So open up a new terminal and just paste this out. Okay, so let's give it some time to install. Okay, there you go, that's done. So now we are gonna define whatever we need to do if at all we press on the pay button. So firstly, this Razorpay is gonna take in some options. Okay, so we're going to define that options inside of an object. So I'm going to say const options equals to an object, firstly description. Okay, so I'm going to say adding to wallet, currency is going to be INR, name is going to be PVR. You can give the name of your own app, whatever you want. Okay, so the next thing is key. We'll come to it in just a bit. Okay, so the amount is gonna be whatever is there inside of our grand total multiplied by 100. Okay, then we're gonna say prefill, and this also is gonna take in an object, email. Okay, and by the way, we are doing this inside of the test mode, as I've already told. So I'm going to say void at razorpay.com. Okay, contact with this number. Okay, and after that I'm going to give it the name attribute as well. The next thing after this is we're going to provide a theme. You can pretty much give the color of your choice. Okay, I'm going to give the color of this one. Okay, so theme, color, of this color code, that is F37254. Okay. Okay, so after initializing our options, we're gonna make use of the Razorpay checkout method that is gonna come from the dependency that is React Native Razorpay. Okay, but when you do this, it's gonna throw you an error which says something like JavaScript code try to access a native module that doesn't exist. Okay, because Expo doesn't support the Razorpay gateway. So to do that, we're gonna pretty much run a piece of code. Okay, so firstly, after the options, I'm gonna say Razorpay checkout dot open. We're gonna provide the options to this method dot then of whatever the data is, that is it's gonna give us a payment ID basically. Okay, so I'm gonna say for now let's console.log the data. Okay, so as I save the file, okay, so there you go, it is given the error which says your JavaScript code tried to access a native module that doesn't exist. Okay, so this is giving the error because of this piece of line, that is line number 5. Okay, so to prevent this from happening, let's pretty much just refresh the app, open up a new terminal over here. So for Android users, you need to do npx expo run Android. Okay, so this is the piece of code you need to do. Okay, so it's going to take some time and run this piece of code, create an Android folder inside your file tree, and then it's going to open up the the simulator, and it's going to install this particular app, that is PVR 2.0 project, inside your emulator, and then you can pretty much test this out. It's going to work. If this code doesn't work, you can try out this one, that is npx expo run Android -t with the emulator name, whatever is the emulator name which you're using, that one you need to write over here. So let's say suppose you're using Pixel 3 API 30, so just copy the same thing with the correct spelling. Okay, so this is for the Android. Okay, make sure you write the D over there. So for iOS, which I'm gonna do it now, it's gonna be pretty similar. So I'm just gonna say npx expo run iOS. Okay, so this is gonna take some time, and then install app over here inside this phone itself, and then we can check out this working, that is the Razorpay checkout. So give it some time, and then pretty much I'm gonna press on enter. Okay, so after executing this piece of code, it's going to ask you the question which says what would you like your iOS bundle identifier to be. I'm going to pretty much say host.exp com.host.exponent. Okay, so it's going to be the same thing for the Android as well, so pretty much hit enter. Okay, so I think this should create iOS folder inside of your file tree, as you can see over here, and it is gonna install this particular app inside of the simulator. So let's give it some time. Okay guys, so for me the app has been installed. So if you just check out over here, okay, so this is the project, that is PVR 2.0 project. So we are no more working with Expo Go. Okay, so we will be seeing all of our changes inside this app itself. Okay, so the same thing will reflect inside your Android emulator as well, if you follow of course these steps which I've told you. Okay, so for Android it's going to be different, for iOS it's going to be npx expo run iOS, and for Android npx expo run Android. Okay, so now let's give it a try. Hopefully this payment should work, correct? So let's pretty much open up the app, select our location, okay, and over here select the same show timings A1 and A2 for the first film, proceed. Let's add, let's say, the first item, proceed over here as well. So if at all I press on the pay button, hopefully this should show up, right? So let's give that a try, and there you go, we are able to see the payment gateway. Okay, we are not. Okay, my bad, we forgot to write the key, right? So let me tell you how to get the key, correct? So to get the key, we need to go into Razorpay, that is the official website. this one. Okay, so log in with your Google account. Okay, so I've logged in with my Google account, and to get the key I think you need to go over to, let's say it's currently in the test mode, as you can see. Okay, so let's press on payment gateway. Okay, so this is my first key that is generated. So for you it would be showing a button at the center which says generate a test key, something like that. Okay, I've already generated this, so pretty much copy this piece of code. Okay, come back to your code and paste it over here. So that's it. Save the file and press on pay button. So there you go. So this is our payment gateway, correct? So we're gonna use, let's say, a UPI, and we're gonna enter the number. Okay, something like this, and I'm gonna press on pay. Okay, so after the payment has been processed, we're gonna get this ID. Okay, that is the payment ID, right? So this is basically the payment ID that we have obtained after the payment has been processed. That is the console.log of data, correct? So now after this, we need to make the booking status to be false for these two seats, right? So to do that, firstly, we're gonna go back to our theater screen. Okay, where we had done this was done inside our first video. So we're pretty much gonna copy this piece of code. Okay, come back to our confirmation screen, and after this has been processed, that is the data has been processed, I'm gonna paste the same thing. Okay, so previously the logic was done already, implemented in the first video, so you can check that out. So firstly, instead of rows, we have access to our rows which is stored inside of our root params. So over here I'm gonna say root dot params dot rows. Okay, so after that I'm gonna say to access the selected seats, it's gonna be root dot params dot selected seats dot for each, and for each seat again we are finding the row index as well as the seat index. Okay, so the next thing is, as I told, we need to make changes inside this particular document, correct? Because that's the show time which we have selected, 10:20, and if you just press on the dot button over here, 3 dots, inspect, you can see the ID. Okay, so with the help of this ID, we're going to go into this particular document, and after going into that, we are going to go into the row, and then the seat number 1 and the seat number 2 should be made as disabled. Okay, so to do that, firstly we need to have access to the ID, right? So previously I showed that we are even passing the ID from the theater screen to the, from the fourth screen to the confirmation screen, as you can see over here. Can you see this doc ID? This doc ID is coming from the movie screen, that is over here. That is when we press on the show time. So to get the item._id, I'm doing this. So this is entirely being passed to the confirmation screen. So I'm gonna say after the seat index, const doc id equals to root dot params dot doc id, right? So that's it. So now we need to go into this particular doc id. So I'm gonna say client, get the client, import that from this particular PVR movie / sanity that we have created already. Okay, so I'm gonna say client dot patch. We'll be making use of the patch method. So this is going to take in the doc id which we want to edit. So I'm going to say client dot patch of doc id, and we're going to make use of the set method like this. Okay, so over here we are interested only in the row, right? This particular row. So I'm just going to say go to the row, and over here after going into the row, go into the row index. Row index has already been calculated over here, and after going into the row index, we are going to go to the seats. Okay, after going into the seats, firstly select the seat index that we have calculated. Okay, go into the row and then go into the seats of the seat index, and then pretty much access the booking status. Okay, so after accessing the booking status, we're going to set it to be disabled like this. Okay, so after setting this up, there is a method called as commit. So all the changes get committed. So I'm going to say dot commit like this. Okay, so after committing, we are going to apply the dot then method. I'm going to say dot then, which is going to give us the updated doc. Okay, so for now I'm just pretty much console.logging whatever is the updated doc like this. Okay, and if at all there is any errors, we're gonna catch that. So I'm just gonna say dot catch of error. So I'm gonna say console.log the update has been failed, and I'm gonna say show me the error for that like this. Okay, and yeah, this one is for our convenience, that is update rows of rows index. That's going to be same itself. Okay, so that's it. So this should pretty much work. Okay, so we've already understood the logic, how exactly it's gonna get booked. So for the same row index and for the same seat index in the backend, we're gonna pretty much go patch the doc id and set the row of row index dot go into the seats of the seat index and access the booking status and make it as disabled. Okay, so that's it. So and then we are pretty much trying to console.log the updated document. Okay, so now after this has been completed. Okay, so I think we need to navigate to the next screen, right? That is after the payment has been completed. So to do that, firstly we need access to the seats as well, that is to show it inside the next screen. So I'm pretty much gonna go back to my theater screen where we have calculated the result. Okay, that is this piece of code. So I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna paste it over here. Okay, so instead of selected seats, it's gonna be root.params.selected seats like this. Okay, so pretty much we are trying to access the result, right? So this result is gonna send to be the next screen. So I'm gonna say navigation.navigate. So firstly, let's create our screen, that is the result screen or the ticket screen, something like this. .js rnfes to get the shorthand snippet. Save the file. Let's include this screen inside of our stack navigator. So home stack.screen. Okay, so instead of confirmation, I'm gonna say ticket, and the component for this is gonna be the ticket screen. Save the file, come back to our confirmation screen. Okay, so we are going to say navigation.navigate to the name of the screen which we want to navigate to, that is going to be ticket, and over here I'm going to pass in some informations. Okay, so you can pretty much check out this. So I'm pretty much passing the result, the mall, the show time, the date, as well as the seats. Okay, so hopefully everything should work. So let's understand how exactly again the payment is working. So firstly, if at all we press on the pay button, to which we have on press event, that is the pay function. Okay, so firstly we perform the payment. Okay, so after that has been performed, we want to book the seats inside the backend, that is the selected seats should be disabled. Okay, so that no one else can come and book that, correct? So again, I'm just following the same kind of implementation that we have done in the previous video, that is calculate the row index, the seat index, and we need to firstly identify the doc id which we want to go to. Okay, so as I already told, this is coming from the root.params. So we'll be making use of the patch method, and then we're going to set the row of row index dot the seats of seat index and access the booking status of it and make it to be disabled. So that's it. So let's give it a try. Hopefully if you have not done anything wrong, it should work fine. So again, let's pretty much press on the pay button. Okay, so I'm gonna say pay now. Let's see, hopefully if we would be navigated to the next screen. So it's redirecting in 5210. Okay, we are not redirecting, so let's see where exactly we have gone wrong. Okay, so the one mistake which we made was, okay, over here inside the condition, instead of checking for s dot number, we were checking for s dot seat, correct? So it's gonna be s dot number should be equal to the seat dot seat. So now let's give it a try. So now hopefully it should work. So pretty much I'm gonna say do this part. Okay, hopefully we should be navigated to the next screen with all of this tickets booked. Okay, so let's give it some time. So there you go, now it's working fine. So if you pretty much check out the console over here, so as you can see, this is our updated doc. Okay, so if you check out the row and object, the seats, let's just check out the first one. As you can see, it's disabled, and the second one, it is disabled. The remaining one is going to be false itself. So let's check out the same thing in our backend also. Okay, let's refresh once. Okay, for the show times, as you can see, first one is disabled and the second one is disabled as well for 1020. Okay, so that's the way this thing works, right? So for 3, 4 and 5, it's gonna be false. Okay, so now let's start designing the ticket screen. Okay, so here we'll be pretty much showing up the information regarding the film. Okay, that is the selected mall, the selected film, and the selected showtime, as well as the dates. Okay, so let's look into this. That's going to happen over here in the ticket screen. So firstly, I'm going to make use of a safe area view over here instead of a normal view. So I'm going to say safe area view. Okay, so let's pretty much copy this over here. Okay, so the first thing inside the safe area view is I'm going to initialize my first view over here. Okay, so this view is going to contain another view, which in turn is going to contain all of the details. So let me give the style for the outer view over here. I'm going to say style. It's going to have a background color of white, a height of let's say 90%. Okay, and a bit of external spacing, that is margin, and a slight border radius of 6. Okay, so for this view it's going to contain a text. So I'm going to say text, and let me initialize my route params. So I'm going to say const route equals to use route, import it from this particular dependency like this, and after that, to access the name of the mall, I'm going to say route dot params dot mall. Okay, because these are the informations we have passed from the ticket screen, from the confirmation screen to the ticket screen. Okay, so let me just save the file. So as you can see, that's the mall. Okay, so after that view, we are gonna have a second view that's gonna come up over here. So I'm gonna say view. So this in turn is gonna have two texts. Okay, let's also provide some padding to this, that is to this one over here, or over here. Okay, that's looking better. So now this text is going to contain pretty much the language. Okay, in our case we're going to hard code it because we have not passed it from the first thing, from the first screen. You can pretty much pass the language from the first screen to the final screen, right? So here we're going to say text, which is going to be a PVR ticket. Okay, so yep, so for this one I'm going to say style, margin horizontal of 10. Okay, and I'm gonna give the styling for the text over here. I'm going to say style. So it's going to have a font size of 15 and a font weight of, let's say, 500. Okay, so save the file, and after that let's give the styling for the second piece of text over here. So I'm going to say style. So this is going to have a color of red, and it's going to have a font size of 16 or 15 and a font weight of 400. Okay, so now for the view, I'm going to say flex direction of row, align items of center, and justify content of space between, like this. Okay, so pretty much save the file. Okay, there you go, that's looking better. So now let's look into the remaining part of the styling. So after this is I'm gonna initialize a divider, just like the thing we did in the confirmation screen. Okay, so for that I'm gonna initialize a text field, and I'm just gonna give the style to this. Okay, so this pretty much is gonna have a border color first, border color of this color code. Okay, and a border width as well of, let's say, 1, and I'm gonna give border style, it's gonna be dashed. Okay, and we're gonna give it a margin, that is external spacing, of 10 and a height of 1. Okay, so let's decrease the border width to be 0.5. Okay, I'm not sure why the dashed is not working, right? It is correctly coming in a line. So yeah, I think never mind. So the next thing we'll be looking into is we're gonna initialize our next view after this. So I'm gonna say view. So this view in turn is gonna have another view, which is gonna have two texts inside of it. Okay, so this text is gonna say date and time. Okay, so after this text we have another text over here. So pretty much we are gonna pretty much show the date, that is this one, right? So I'm just gonna say root.params.date to access that particular date. Okay, so save the file. Okay, not sure why that is not working, the date, because that's what the name we have given, right? Okay, so let's look into the further design stuff. Okay, so after this we have is basically the image. So let me just get the code for the image. Okay, so just pasted the code for the image, and this is the link. It's pretty much the logo of the PVR. Okay, and I'm gonna give the style for this outer view. I'm gonna say a flex direction of row, align items of center, and justify content of space between. Okay, and now instead of the date, I'm pretty much gonna show the show time. I'm not sure why that's not showing up. Okay, that's looking better. Okay, so this image should come inside this view, I guess, over here. Okay, so there you go, that's looking better. So now we are gonna give some more styling to this view. So I'm gonna say style, a margin top of, not margin top, margin left of 10. Okay, yep, I think that's looking better. So let's decrease the margin over here. Okay, not sure why it's taking that extra space. Let's decrease the margin to be 5. Or we can just give a margin top of 8. Okay, yeah, I think that's better. So the next thing is we're gonna look into okay, instead of margin top, okay, let's try out margin horizontal of 8. Okay, and margin vertical of 8 as well. Okay, 8 in the sense it's the same as margin 8, correct? Okay. Yeah, I think it's better to give a margin top of 8 itself. Or let's give margin left and right, and margin right as well. Yeah, I think that's looking better. Okay, so now for the date and time, I'm going to say style, font size 15, and then font weight of 500. Okay, and for the show time over here, I'm going to say style, margin top of 5, 6, and a font size of 15. Okay, yep, I think that's looking better. So the next thing after that is we're gonna pretty much show up the next part of the details, that is basically the number of, the theater number, right? So that's gonna come right after here. So for that, I'm gonna initialize one more view. Before that, I'm gonna copy out this piece of text that's gonna come over here. Okay, let's decrease the margin top to be 4. Okay, so now I'm gonna initialize my view. So this in turn is gonna have again another view, which is gonna contain pretty much the theater name. You can pretty much give anyone, anything like this, and the second text attribute is gonna contain the number of tickets, right? So over here, I don't think we have the number of tickets. Let's pretty much, try to access the console dot, try to access the root params. So console.log root.params. So save the file. Okay, so we pretty much have seats, correct? So to access the number of tickets, it's gonna be root.params.seats.length, right? So over here, I'm gonna say root.params.seats.length. As you can see, we have 2 seats selected, so we are getting 2. Okay, so for this, I'm gonna say style, a bit of margin horizontal of 10, and a bit of margin top as well of 7. Okay, so I think it should be in a flex direction of row, I guess. Okay, so yeah, I think let's do make it like that. So over here, I'm gonna say, not for this, for this particular view, I'm gonna say style, flex direction of the row, align items of center, and justify content of space between. Okay, so here I'm gonna say tickets like this, and let's give the style for this. I'm gonna say color of gray and a font weight of 500. Okay, I think that's looking better. So the next thing we'll be looking into is basically to show all of the details, right? That is the seats. So for that, I'm gonna copy out this view again. Okay, so instead of this OD3, I'm gonna say seats. Okay, so if you check out our console.log, that is the root.params, to access the seats, that is A1 and A2, it's gonna be root.params.selected seats. Okay, so instead of this, I'm gonna say root.params.selected seats. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, so the selected seats, I'm gonna give it a different color. So over here, I'm gonna say color of, let's say, red. Okay, so that part is done. So the next thing we'll be looking into is we will be showing up pretty much the price details. Okay, so again, I'm gonna use that divider, this one, and I'm gonna paste it over here. Okay, and after that, yeah, so pretty much let's start showing up our price details. So over here I'm going to initialize my view. Okay, so for this view I'm going to give it a style. It's going to have a background color of this color code, that is FF 6347. Okay, it's going to have a slight border radius as well of 6 and some external spacing, that is margin of 10. Okay, and save the file. So now inside the view we're going to start showing up our price details. So I'm going to say text, which is going to say price details. Okay, let's decrease the border radius 3 and let's give some internal spacing, that is a padding of 10. Okay, so here pretty much we're just gonna show whatever details we showed inside of the confirmation screen. Okay, so let's go back to the confirmation screen. Okay, we're gonna show all of the details from the grand total, right, from over here. So pretty much copy this one and just paste it right after the text. Okay, so let's get access to the grand total. I think we have not sent that over here from the confirmation to the ticket screen, right? So let's pretty much try to calculate it over here as well. So try to copy all of this code inside the ticket screen. Okay, import the necessary things, that is use selector, and yeah, root params dot, okay, instead of selected seats dot length you have to access the seats dot length. Okay, so it's gonna be seats dot length multiplied by the ticket price for one seat. Okay, and similarly our grand total is calculated. Okay, so over here pretty much the first text is gonna say total, and the second text is gonna say grand total, right? So let's check if we have any errors, otherwise we have to start from the first. Okay, use selector is imported, cart is not there, cart is also imported, use selector imported. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's pretty much save the file. Okay, total is working fine. So let's give it a color of white for all of this. So for the price details I'm going to say style, a font size of 15 and a font weight of 500 with the color of white. Okay, and for this let's keep it to be 15, that is a total. Okay, let's give the color of white for this as well. Okay, so now after that we're going to show the next piece of information, that is we're just going to pretty much copy this out. Okay, so this is going to come right after this view, right? So instead of this selected seats dot length, it's gonna be seats dot length. Okay, here as well, instead of selected seats dot length multiplied by that value, it's gonna be seats dot length. Okay, there you go. We just need to change the color and let's keep it to be 15. Okay, that's looking better. So let's give the color as this one, that is white. Okay, I think this one doesn't have a font weight of bold, right? I mean font weight of 500. So let's try to remove that out. Yeah, I think that's looking better. So after that tickets, we have the next thing that is to be shown as the food and beverages, right? So here copy this view firstly and we're gonna paste it after this view has been completed, that is over here. I think I didn't copy it correctly, so copy that view and paste it over here. Okay, so where was that? Okay, so total is there, this is there, and save the file. So again, let's try to remove the font weight of 500 over here as well, and we're going to give it a color of white for both of the texts like this. Okay, so after this we have is, I think, one more detail, that is to show all of the items. I don't think that's required. We are pretty much going to show the convenience fee over here. So over here we're going to say copy this view out, and this is going to come right after this has been completed, right? So over here, okay, there you go. So let's give it the color of white again to both of the texts. Yep, I think that's looking better. So after that, I think we need to display the next thing, that is the QR code, correct? So for that we need to install a dependency. So let's look into that. So I'm going to open up a new terminal over here, and I'm going to say yarn add this particular dependency, that is React Native QR code SVG. Okay, so let's wait for this to install. Okay, so after it has been installed, we're gonna pretty much show it right after all of the view. So let's just check if we are just below the container. Yeah, we are correctly there. Okay, so after we have installed this thing, I'm just gonna paste the code for the QR code. Okay, so this text is of course gonna be same, right? And this is a basic hard-coded value, and inside my view I'm gonna pretty much initialize this component. Okay, that is SVG QR code. Okay, let's import that from this dependency. From React Native SVG QR code. Okay, so I think this one. Okay, and after that we're gonna pretty much show a return button, so that if you press on the button you will be navigated automatically to the home screen. So I'm gonna say pressable. It's gonna have a text which says return. Let's import pressable, it's already imported. So I'm gonna say style. Okay, let's give the same background color we gave to this view. So that is over here, this one. Okay, and I'm gonna say a padding of 10 and a margin left of auto and a margin right of auto as well. Okay, the React Native SVG could not be found within the project, right? Okay. Okay, let's try to add this as well. That is yarn add React Native SVG. I'm gonna say yarn add React Native SVG. Okay, so hopefully we should be seeing that now. Nope, we are not able to see that. Okay, so save the file once. I think if you refresh the app and then try it out from the beginning, you should be able to see it. Okay, so yeah, margin left of auto, margin right of auto. For this, I'm gonna say style, a color of white, text align of center, and a font weight of 500. Okay. So here also in this screen, you should not be able to go back to the previous screen, that is the confirmation screen. So I'm pretty much going to copy the use effect that we initialized inside the confirmation screen for Android device. That is this use effect. Okay, if at all you try to press on the back button, you would be automatically shown a modal, the alert box. Okay, so let's import use effect from React. Okay, let's also initialize the navigation. Okay, that part is done. Let's import alert from React Native like this. Okay, and after that back handler 2 from React Native. Okay, I think everything else is imported. So if at all the user presses on the back button, you would be shown this alert box. Okay, because you cannot go back to the previous screen. So the next thing is we're gonna do the same thing for iOS. That is just you can't swipe back, right? So to do that, pretty much copy the use layout effect over here, and I'm gonna say import use layout effect from React. Use layout effect from React. Okay, so that part is done. So let's pretty much save the file. Okay, I think now we can check out our seats, right? So currently they should be booked, that is for 10:20 and the first film. And before that, I'm gonna have an on-press event on this as well. I'm gonna say on-press. If the user presses on the return button, then automatically you should be taken to the home screen. So I'm gonna pretty much copy this code that we've given for on-press. Okay, and I'm gonna paste it over here. Okay, so hopefully now we should be able to see the tickets booked as well as the QR code if we book a different ticket, right? So let's refresh the app. So the tickets we booked was for a 10:20 showtime, and the film was, of course, we have just one film, this one, and this is the mall, and the seats were A1 and A2, right? So let's check that out. So let's go over here. Okay, just reload it. Okay, we have some error. Okay, let's just cut the server and just run it again. Let's give it one more try. Nope. Let's pretty much cut the server. This one, yeah, this one too. This one is for Sanity, right? So again, I'm just gonna say npx export on iOS. Okay guys, so the app has been loaded, so I'm gonna pretty much select the location over here. Okay, and then pretty much select the book. So this mall, this is the mall that we booked. I'm gonna select the first showtime, that is 10:20. You should be seeing the first two tickets as booked, right? So let's check that out. So as you can see, we have booked the first two tickets. Okay, I think even this was booked afterwards. Okay, so pretty much we have these two tickets which are unbooked, correct? So let's go check out the backend ones. So if you check out our row over here, so this is disabled, this is disabled, and 3 or 4 are false. Okay, and 5 is also disabled. Okay, so the next thing is, let's check it out now. So I'm gonna press on proceed. Pretty much at the first one, again proceed, and if I press on the pay button, so currently we are checking for, I guess, seat number 3. So let's check this out. Okay, press on pay now. Okay, payment is successful. It's redirecting in 5 seconds. So after that, and there you go, that's looking absolutely fine. Okay, we are getting the QR code now. So make sure you install two of the dependencies, that is this one, React Native QR code SVG, as well as React Native, one more thing, I just forgot the dependency. It's gonna show you in the error, that's for sure. Okay, just try installing that and it's gonna work. Okay, so now for the button, let's pretty much style it out a bit, give it some border radius and some margin bottom. Okay, so over here for the button, I'm gonna say over here border radius of 4. All right, and some margin top of 10 and margin bottom of 10. Okay, let's increase the height for this. We have given 90, let's keep it to be 95. Okay, that's looking better. So if at all you press on this button, you should be automatically taken to the home screen. There you go. Okay, so now if at all, let's go check out our backend first. So as you can see, update has been made 36 seconds ago, just now. So that is for seat number 3. As you can see, even this is disabled. Okay, so that's the way we disable the seats. So even if you refresh the app, since our backend is stored as disabled, it is gonna show disabled, right? So if we check out over here, firstly let's say yeah, location is selected. Yeah, as you can see, even seat number 3 is being disabled. You can't book it, correct? And one more thing which we forgot was you can pretty much add alert box before we press on the book button. That is, the location should be selected. Okay, I think you can do that part. That is gonna come inside the product card over here. Okay, not over here, I think inside the inside the movie card. Okay, where we have the book button on press, I think we should apply a condition that if at all the location is selected, okay, then itself we're gonna go to the next screen. Otherwise we're just gonna give a pop-up message which says please select the location. Okay, so I think you can do that part, which is easily which can be easily done. Okay, I think that's it about this project. You can pretty much add different sets of films over here. Okay, and you can test it out. It's gonna work absolutely fine, I guess. Okay, over here you can add a new film, and you can pretty much add a different showtime, and we can link that showtime with any film you want, and pretty much you can add your new theater as well. I think that's it about this project. So let's see you in the next one, and then thank you for watching.